And welcome to the Alachua County School Board meeting for July 16th, 2024. If you would stand at this time for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. You may be seated. Now we will have our ACA update by Ms. Ward and Dr. Tessman.
Good evening, Chair McGraw, school board members, staff. I'm Carmen Ward, president of Alachua County Education Association, and we are with you tonight with some of our union members. There are education support professionals and teachers in the room. If you are here in support of ACA, please raise your hand. So we do have some members that have come to our meeting too, because the state of the union and the state of our negotiations is not great. And I definitely wanted to bring this to the attention of the board. We have been since February negotiating, and we had a very impactful meeting in May 22nd, and in that meeting the board team threatened that if we did not move off of our stronghold on our contract language around early release Wednesdays, that they were instructed to go to impasse. And we were at a 1.6% offer from the board. We definitely did not think that was acceptable. We definitely did not want an impasse, so we decided to compromise. Even though we had surveyed our members and they said early release Wednesdays weekly was best for teaching and learning, we decided to tentatively agree to go to a monthly early release Wednesday for the purpose of not being at an impasse with the district bargaining team. However, after that tentative agreement was signed, the board team continued to this day of only bringing 1.6%. So even though we conceded, the board team continued to behave as if we were at an impasse and did not negotiate in good faith from that point forward. I see that the timer has been put on. On my, is that for me? That 3 minute? Oh, okay. Thank you. Thank you. So we have many issues to resolve in negotiations, and we definitely want to continue, and we want to do what is most respectful, giving the employees in this district the most dignity that we can. And there are a lot of concerns about the budget that we are going to be tentatively approving. And I definitely think there is room for improving employee salaries. The last proposal ACA put on the table was 3.4%, which is, I think, very reasonable, and also would be a substantial improvement for employees. So we have a situation. We will continue to work together to hopefully do better by the employees, because I definitely feel like the board side needs to do better. And that concludes what I have to say. I definitely want to make progress where there are grandfathered employees. We have loyal employees that make less than performance pay employees in our district, and that is one of the many issues that we need to resolve. But we also need to keep in mind that we want to retain our wonderful education support professionals and teachers so that our school system is successful. Thank you.
Chair McGraw, school board members, Superintendent Andrew, district staff. I'm Crystal Tessman. I'm the ACA Service Unit Director, Instructional Vice President, and Chief Negotiator for Contract Language for our education support professionals. I do want to thank you for signing the MOU regarding paraprofessionals being paid for a portion of pre-planning. This is a great step in the right direction for paras, teachers, students, and schools overall. I will not take time to repeat what Carmen has said, but I wholeheartedly agree that the district can and should increase pay more than they have previously offered for all employees. I'm going to focus my time on the continued refusal of ACEA's proposals to increase the amount of money ESPs get when they sub for teachers. Currently, the contract states in the event an ESP substitutes for an absent teacher, the ESP shall be paid a $25 per day supplement. The amount may be prorated if less than a day, in addition to their regular salary. An ESP has the right to refuse to substitute. Such refusal will not reflect negatively upon the ESP. Please note, take note of the prorated portion. That means in a high school that has 6 periods, an ESP subbing for a teacher could get $4.17 to sub for a 50-minute class. This year, we have tried 7 times to increase this supplement. The most recent counter by the board was on June 27th, and it was to not increase this amount a penny. Something that I want to note is that the district pays substitute teachers between $105 and $144 a day, costing the district between $136.24 and $186.84 a day. All year, we have reasonably asked for less than that, less than what the district should be budgeting for these substitutes. When there isn't a substitute, schools are incredibly blessed to have ESPs who step up to help. These ESPs provide continuity and safety for students, prevent teachers from being pressured to combine classes, and prevent administrators from being taken away from their duties. Our ESPs know their students and their schools better than any sub ever could. We are lucky to have them. I could argue that they should make more than a sub. I have heard the argument that ESPs are already making their hourly rate, so they are lucky to get $25 extra. This is problematic because they have to complete both jobs, not just the substituting one, but also their regular job. I have heard the argument that the district needs to be careful with money. While true in theory, it doesn't make sense here. All that will happen if ESPs are paid more to sub is that the district will not save as much money. They will not profit as much off of the exploitation of some of their lowest paid employees. Another interesting piece of information is that the $25 supplement has been in the contract since 2001. The Bureau of Labor Statistics website calculates that $25 in 2001 is worth $44.86 today. What happens if ESPs decide they have had enough of subbing for $25 and they just say no, using their contractual right to do so? Every principal in the county would tell you how problematic that would be. Is the district just betting that our ESPs need the money so badly that they will just keep doing it? I hope not. I hope this information somehow has not clearly been presented before and that it is now very clear that $25 a day is exploitative and unacceptable.
All right, thank you. Moving on to the adoption of the agenda, we have a few changes. Under the consent, we will be pulling consent number 5 to become action item number 8. Also, number 8, which is the MOU between the school board of Alachua County and Gainesville for all, you're adding the amended lease agreement, which you all received. It's amended to say that. And also under the action item number 5, which is the school resource officer and deputy agreements, that's being pulled all together. That would not be a part of our discussion tonight. So after those changes, need a motion to approve.
So moved.
And it's been moved and properly seconded by Dr. McNeely. If there's no other discussion, hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries unanimously. All right. So moving on to approval of our regular school board workshop minutes of June 11th. Need a motion.
Move to approve minutes as presented.
All right.
Second.
Okay, been moved and properly seconded. Moved by Ms. Surton, seconded by Rockwell, Dr. Rockwell. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Approval of regular school board meeting minutes for June 18th.
So move. Second.
Okay, it's been moved by Dr. McNeely, seconded by Ms. Certain. And I'm doing this on purpose because I know Ms. Green is watching us for meeting minutes. If there's no discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. All right, moving on to board member superintendent announcements. Dr. Rockwell, saw you first, then Dr. McNeely.
I just wanted to congratulate the Buchholz High School math team for winning another national championship. I believe this is their 17th consecutive. Do I have that right, Mr. Andrew? 16th. 16 out of 17 years. That's where I had 17. But congratulations to their team and to the families who support the students. That is a phenomenal achievement.
All right. Dr. McNeely?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I want to take a moment to speak to the audience as well as persons at home a little bit about the Gainesville Empowerment Family Learning Center, which is located over at Metcalf Elementary. They are accepting children and babies, infants, I should say, and the infants and 1-year-old to 4-year-olds, and they shared with me while I visited growing greatness, and that's certainly happening at that center. They're asking for open applications that's open right now, and you can certainly go over and get your baby or your infant or your preschooler enrolled. So we're excited for them. It's going to be a great, great year, and we look forward to many of our families joining this group. Again, that's the Gainesville Empowerment Family Learning Center. Thank you.
All right,
And
go ahead.
and my next announcement is very important. We need for you to please come out and support retired Principal May Isler on Saturday at Eastside High School, July the 20th at 1 p.m. That's going to be held in the Eastside School Auditorium. And then immediately following that, we will go down to 11th Place on the side of the school, where that street will be named officially May Isler. So we hope that you will be choosing to join us at 1 o'clock on Saturday, July the 20th for this event. Thank you, Madam Chair.
All right, thank you, Dr. McNeely. Mr. Andrew?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to send our condolences out to Mr. Terrence Siegler's family on behalf of the School Board of Alachua County and Alachua County Public Schools. Mr. Siegler was a former veteran. He served as a para at Eastside High School in Waldo Community. He also served a couple of departments in our school district, the Transportation Department and the Food and Nutrition Services Department. So I just wanted to take a moment to let his family know that they're in our thoughts and prayers. And I also, unfortunately, wanted to send condolences out to the Johnson family. Some of you may know Mr. Lamar Clifford Johnson. He passed away recently. And I saw Mrs. Daisy Johnson today. She stopped by the district office, and I did not know this. And I worked with Miss Johnson for approximately 16 years at Hawthorne. And so I wanted to, one, recognize Mr. Johnson because he retired from our district as well. He started in 1976 and retired in 2015, spending many of his years at A. Quinn Jones. And so I just wanted to recognize his career that spanned 5 decades and let his family know, Mrs. Johnson, as well as his 3 children that I know so well, Ashadi, Montrez, and Ashley, that we're thinking about them as well. On a more uplifting note, I wanted to make sure We reminded everybody Rawlings Elementary School is open. The Rockets have launched. They had a historic launch today. I was privileged to be by there yesterday and speak to their faculty and staff, who certainly displayed their calling and their love of children and their sacrifice of a short summer this summer to come back and be there and ready for our students' arrival today. There was a lot of parents. There was a big turnout yesterday for Meet Your Teacher, and it was great to see all of the parents there. I was there this morning at the start of school, the first day of school, and the majority, and I'm probably 98, 99% of the students that I saw arrive before I entered the building were on time and ready to go. And so I just want to say thank you to our parents for getting those students out. With that in mind, we still have other students that need to come join the Rockets as they're taking off there. And so I just want to remind parents, Rawlings Elementary School is open. Kindergartners should be enrolled at this time. If students are not enrolled across the school district in kindergarten, there's no time to waste here. Let's get those kindergartners enrolled as well. So again, I just want to say thank you to the faculty and staff for their support of this transition to year-round school. It was certainly a historic day there, and it was just exciting to see those students coming back to school. After I left there, I went and visited a couple other campuses, just checking in with administrative teams, and it felt quite eerie just to show up at the other campuses, and it's still the middle of summer, and there's not full parking lots, and children running around, scurrying off to their quads in their homeroom teacher's classroom. And so it was that first day excitement. I could just feel it, and I wanted to share that. And so that's all I have for this evening. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Moving on to the chair's report, I too visited Rawlings today, spent about an hour and a half there, and I can just tell you, walking around, to hear our staff and to hear teachers saying how excited they were, how things were going so well. I was so glad to hear the kids in the cafeteria, so the custodians and Principal Aduzer and some of her staff, we all took a picture. It was great, but everybody was in the spirit of happiness, and that was good to see. I talked to some parents as well, and they were happy that the school is reopened. So I think they said they think they're going to love the year-round school, so we were so happy for them today. Also visited Duval Early Learning Academy to see how they were coming. And I can tell you, whoever did the floors, you did a phenomenal, I was like, oh my God, they were so shiny. But I would tell you, I must thank Principal Alvarez, Tricia Rodriguez, Ms. Richardson, Ms. Jordan, Ms. Baez. They all moved furniture, which was not easy. They all moved furniture out of the hallways to prepare for the painters to come in. They were really working hard, and I'm just so appreciative to them and excited to see the great things that are going to happen at Duval Early Learning Academy. And also our Grow Hub has been nominated for Best Garden, Center, or Nursery by the Gainesville Community Choice Awards. And so voting starts today. You can vote until July 30th at grow.hub. And so they're asking us to vote, and so please vote until July 30th at grow.hub for our Grow Hub. And so we want to cheer them on and hope that they will get that Gainesville Community Choice Award. And that is it for me. Thank you all so much. Now moving on to citizen input. The first one you will have 3 minutes before the board, and please state your name when you come forward so we can have your name for the record. The first one we have is Kathy Sutton, followed by Lorraine Seals. And these are non-agenda items, right? Yes, for things that are not on our agenda at this time.
I'm talking about the...
Yes, I see. Okay, go ahead.
Hi, I'm Kathy Sutton. I'm a licensed mental health counselor, but I'm not doing that now. I'm working as a paraprofessional at Fort Clark Middle School. I'm also pre-certified as an English teacher, 6 through 12, but I'm not doing that either. I'm being a paraprofessional. I took this part-time job. I'm older, and it's kind of hard to get a job in the school system when you're a little bit older. But anyway, I mean, as a teacher, so I took this paraprofessional job. I really love working in the school. I love my boss, Brad Hutchinson. I love him. I loved Bessie Crishoni. I worked with her a lot last year, and Mr. Tabor. But anyway, we have a new administration this year, but anyway, I'm looking forward to them. I am in support of raises for teachers and paraprofessionals at 3.4%, at least at the inflation rate. It's very hard to keep up with eating healthy food. Meat and vegetables and fruits are very, very expensive. Like a peach is $1.50 and an apple's almost $2. It's very, very hard. I don't even make $17 an hour. I recently called, my mother passed away recently. I had to call around a bunch of state lawyers. State attorneys are $400 an hour. And I said, oh, and that's just for the first hour. And I don't even make $17 an hour, and they want $400 an hour. So we're living in a society now where other professionals and other people are making a ton of money, and we're going lower and lower and lower on the totem pole. Hearing aids cost over $6,000, and these things are not even paid by insurance a lot of times. Car repair bills. My last car repair bill was $1,500. That's a whole month of my income, my salary. Subpay, I would like to go up to $40 extra, please. Subpay, that's a big responsibility. Dry cleaning bills have gone way up. Tires, eye surgery. I had to pay $1,500 copay for my cataract surgery. Anyway, paraprofessionals don't have many sick days. I would really appreciate it if we could get COVID pay again. I can't help it if I get COVID at the school. I catch it from the children, and I'm laid out for a whole week. And then I hardly have any sick leave for the rest of the year. I would really appreciate if y'all could put back the COVID sick leave coverage, because, you know, we don't, I mean, we're doing our job, and we get the COVID. And it makes us really, really sick, especially as you get older. But anyway, I really appreciate the schools. And one other thing that I would like to share with all of you, because I care about children, I'm highly educated, I love children, I raised two myself, my son is in medical school. Please do not put Fruit Loops in the children's breakfast bar anymore. It's pure sugar.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Seals. And then Sarah Poe.
Hi, I'm Lorraine Sills, and I'm a special education teacher at an elementary school. I did not plan on being here today. I just happened to wear my t-shirt saying my class is full of sweethearts, because that's how strongly I feel about the students that I work with. And not just the students. We have wonderful people within our schools. I have 2 paraprofessionals in my classroom. They are essential to the progress that my students have been able to make. I teach a self-contained classroom. I have 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade students, and these students are expected to still pass the standardized tests that all the general education students have to pass within our school system. I really think that these paraprofessionals, these ESPs, should be given the support that they deserve. $25 extra for subbing when I'm out is not sufficient for the responsibilities that these people do take when I'm out. Another thing I want to bring up is the 1.6% increase that's proposed for the teacher pay raises. I have been teaching for our district for a while, and I've always enjoyed being part of this district. However, I've been faced now with the possibility, actually the reality, that I am no longer able to afford my home, and I am selling my home. My home insurance has gone up almost $400 per month. The rate of pay is not. I give my heart, my soul to this job. I stay late every single day. I get a half an hour to eat alone. The rest of the time I'm with my students. And that's okay, because I love my students. But I expect that the love is shown to the teachers and the other staff who do give so much of ourselves to these kids, because we do it out of love. We do it out of hope, to help our future be better by preparing these students to become adults who will help take care of us and take care of themselves. So all I ask is that you consider, please, what we're faced with. I'm a real person selling my home because I can't afford it on what you are paying me anymore. I've lost a lot of coworkers who are friends to Georgia because they're getting paid more. I've lost friends to UF and even to private industry. And I don't want to be one of those people. I want to be able to stay here doing a job that I love. So I hope you'll consider your input, your decisions, and how that affects so many lives. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Sarah Poe, then Karen Kearney.
Hi, I'm Sarah Poe. I am a third grade teacher, and I'm here tonight because a 1.6% raise is a disrespectful slap in the face to teachers and staff. Everyone knows that times right now are tough for most people. Rent, gas, grocery prices are all up, and it's near impossible to buy a house. Everyone says they value teachers and our hard work, so pay us like you do. I'm entering my 7th year of teaching, and I barely make more than when I started, even though my workload continues to grow. According to the U.S. Bureau of Labor and Statistics, prices are up an average of 3%. How do you expect me and all of the other employees to keep up with the economy with a 1.6% raise? I've had to downgrade to a smaller apartment because I could no longer afford the one that I was living in. Now I live in a disruptive environment that directly impacts my mental health and consequently my ability to do my job. Unfortunately, I am stuck there because even though housing prices continue to increase, I'm only being given a 1.6% raise. And I'm only responsible for myself. I cannot imagine how single parents are supporting their families with the same paycheck that I receive. We followed all the steps that we were told. We went to school, we got the degrees. I personally got a master's degree. We got the career. When does it start to become financially worth it? Don't get me wrong, I love my job, and being a teacher has always been my dream, but my why doesn't pay the bills. If the economy continues in the direction that it's headed, these minuscule pay raises are going to continue to force a lot of really good teachers out of this county or out of this profession. Thank you.
Thank you. Karen Kearney, and then Dr. Peggy. Grading scale? Okay. Okay. Peggy Vermont, Dr. Peggy Vermont.
Hi, I'm Dr. Peggy Vermont. I am a local school psychologist for Union County Schools, a psychologist here in the county. I was the PTA president over at Lincoln Middle School and been on the PTA there for, I don't know, feels like forever. I'm here because I wanted to tell you that, like many parents, we are disappointed in you. I feel like the board isn't doing what we voted for. I voted, like many people, for change. I was hoping that we would get 5 strong women on the board. People would agree. We can move forward on very difficult agenda items, rezoning, the reading gap, teacher pay, obviously. And it feels like everything just keeps getting pushed aside. No offense to Mr. Andrews, but we were also promised a search for a new superintendent. We didn't get that. And so at this point, I'm just disappointed in the fact that it seems like it's a divided board. And I want to talk on eSchool. I was disappointed that that was only maybe renewed for 1 year without public input. Also, the other thing that we didn't get public input on was the IB school over at Williams. It just feels a lot of things are just done kind of, I don't know, behind the scenes without parents having any input into anything. At this point, I'm not going to be voting for certain people that I voted before. Ms. McGraw, I voted for you 2 times.
Do not call names.
I'm sorry, I didn't know that.
Not to do that.
For certain people that I voted for before, twice in fact, I will not be doing that again. I feel like there's something that is not working yet again, and I'm disappointed, and I know that there's a lot of parents like myself that are disappointed in all of you, and I feel like we're still as dysfunctional as before. Maybe a little less dysfunctional, but still the dysfunction is there, and I wish that all of you would kind of get your act together again, work together, and make real change, not just little action items here and there, but actual change that would make a difference and make real positive impact in this county. And that's all I have to say.
Susan Lamont.
Good evening, members of the board, Superintendent Andrews, district employees, teachers, community members. My name is Susan Lamonte, and I teach 10th grade English Language Arts at Buchholz High School. I've been employed by the district since 2000. I'm here speaking tonight simply, plainly, to ask for your support in acknowledging the union's ask for a 3.4% pay increase, which is significantly lower than the national average for pay increase. You are all well aware of the demands placed on teachers, how hard we work, and how we keep this school an A district, or this district an A district. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Do you have any phone calls? All right, moving on to the consent. About something that somebody said, you can go ahead quickly.
Thank you. To our staff and the audience who are coming, I was just jotting down some notes here, and I'm going to speak for me. I can't, but I can speak for the entire board. We have been very generous, but what I really want to say is, I'd say this, I think, every year that I've been on the board when we come down to this right here, just quickly, in that school districts are established in the state constitution and to correspond with the 67 counties. And unlike the counties and city governments that exist in our state, school districts don't have the authority to set its own millage rate. And the way school districts are funded, Alachua County included, is there's that General Appropriations Act where there's money that's set aside, the legislature decides that, and then they decide on the millage rate for each of the 67 counties. In order for us to get the state money, the Florida Education Foundation money, we have to assess the required local effort. So it's kind of like if you are familiar with the 401k, your employer will give you X percentage if you do a certain amount. Like I had a job, my employer would, if I gave up to 6%, 3%, my employer would give match my 3% with 6%. That is how school districts are funded. So the board gets, we're told after the legislative session ends, an amount that we're thinking we're going to get, and that is tied, the Florida Education Finance Program, FEFP amount, is tied to student enrollment. And then we have that required local effort, which is the assessment that is on our property tax bill. Now, we have 2 assessments that are voter approved that the state allows us to do. In our district, the citizens have been very generous in approving both of those. One is the 1 meals for schools, which can cover operational costs, and it's governed by the ballot language. The other is the half-cent sales tax. So whereas it may seem that the CPI is raised up, it's higher than the what the cost of our funding is, we have to operate within that allotment of the money that we have. It's not like we're I know I'm not one to want to nickel and dime employees. I believe in paying fairly, but we have the constraint where the 5 of us are not deciding on the total amount of funding. And whatever funding increase or funding that we get from this that's we raise from locally with the required local effort, and that we get from the state of Florida, we have to operate the school district, the buildings, buses, staff pay. So just understand, I'm not insensitive to the cost of living increasing. We're not, but the 5 of us up here do not control the amount of money that come into this district. We don't. We don't. And so we have this scale that we're trying to operate out of. And I didn't want some people to leave before I was able to say that. So thank you, Chair McGraw, for allowing me the time to say that. But the funding thing is not all up to us. And we decide on how to spend it when it comes in, but there's only a limited pot of money. I mean, my colleagues will tell you, when I'm always saying, how are we going to pay for it? That is the reason why, because we can have all of these initiatives and want to do all these things, but if we don't have the dollars to do it, there's just a limited amount of dollars, we can't do it. So you have to prioritize on what you're going to do. And for the past 4 years, we've been flush with money, federal money, ESSER dollars, but after September 30th, no labor can be spent on that, and we have to December 31st of 2024, unless there's some law change to extend that, to spend those federal funds. But those are one-time dollars that we received in to address the impact of the pandemic, and those funds are sunsetting now. There were things that we were able to do in our budget because we had that $88 million, whatever it was, we had those dollars, but we just don't have that money to continue to do those things. Thank you.
Thank you. Certain. All right, moving on to our consent agenda. Mr. Andrew.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The superintendent recommends that the school board approve the consent agenda as described in items 2 through 12.
All right, is there a motion?
So moved.
Except for 5. Now, remember, 5 is moved to action item number 8. Okay,
Move to approve the consent agenda as presented, excluding item number 5.
all right. It's been moved and properly seconded. It was moved by Dr. Rockwell, seconded by Ms. Certain. Is there any discussion?
Question, I know.
Yes, go ahead.
I want to get citizen input before I ask.
Yeah, you go ahead, ask the question.
I did have one. The Santa Fe contract. That was one. Because I got the contract later today, I wasn't able to get with you, Dr. Atria. Have you all done a comparison for 23-24 of what we paid Santa Fe based on this contract what we're renewing is fairly the same cost-wise, the 85% versus the per credit hour? Have we paid that? Do you have that?
No, we don't have that calculation. The amount that is in this contract, the 85%, remains what it was from last year.
And then are we paying for high school students to take courses at Santa Fe, that dual enroll high school courses to be provided at Santa Fe, or will they only be offered at our school sites?
That's one of the changes to this contract, is we have asked that students take 2 or fewer high school courses on Santa Fe's campus.
I saw that, 2 or fewer. That's why I was confused. So the answer is yes, they will still be doing some high school courses.
Some, but we have in the past have students that are taking 3 and 4 high school classes a semester. So that is a reduction in the number of high school courses they would take at Santa Fe.
Okay, and there is, I have one other. The health plans. I'll let it go because there's a committee on that. I don't know. I don't even know who to ask about that. I can talk with you about the health plan, the change in that.
Yeah,
I thought that was
the action item.
Okay, I think those are all of my questions. Thank you.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
If I may just to add, we were offering some of the courses on our Buchholz Eastside and Gainesville High campuses, and currently we have 60 students that are enrolled in one of the college math courses and/or the ENC 1101. We have 11 students, and these numbers may change before the start of school, but we currently have 11 students at Buchholz enrolled, 29 at Eastside and 20 at Gainesville High School, for a total of 60 students
Okay,
that will be taking the courses on our high school campuses. Yes, ma'am.
Are there any at Hawthorne? Are we offering any courses in the rural schools, Hawthorne or Santa Fe?
We are not, because of challenges with securing a qualified instructor for those classes.
Thank you.
And that applied to Newberry, Santa Fe, and Hawthorne. Yes, ma'am.
all right.
Excuse me, Lofton as well. Lofton did not. have an instructor for that either.
All right, Ms. Abbott.
I have a question about the purchase product services, the 5 portables going to Camp Crystal. Are those portables that we own, or are we leasing those portables?
Come on up, Mr. Garcia.
Thank you, Board Chair, Board Member, Superintendent Andrew. All of the portables that are being relocated from 2 different sites, from Littlewood Elementary and the 1 portable from Wiles Elementary, are owned portables. So they're 99- number portables, and it's actually going to assist Landon Strack and the Camp Crystal team to increase the number of students that they can bring in, as well as they currently only have 1 2-week session during the summer. The goal is to increase the number of 2-week sessions and to be able to extend it to more students in the community and the surrounding counties.
So will they use the portables for cabins then?
That's to be determined. They are going to, I understand currently the intent is to make one of them a dormitory for CTEs, which is the camp counselors, like training camp counselors, and then multiple dormitories for additional student population. And then there's two of the portables are yet to be determined what their use is going to be. One could be storage. It could be an additional. They may convert one into a full size, one side boys, one side girls, shower, restroom, that sort of thing. But that's to be determined.
Okay. And I guess the reason I'm asking is because I know we have portables across the district that we're leasing, and I'm just wondering if it makes more sense to use the portables that we own and get rid of at a school site and get rid of some of the portables we're leasing if we have excess portables.
No, absolutely. Totally agree. So this opportunity kind of arose with the redevelopment of Littlewood Elementary School. So we had, I believe, 11 portables over there, 6 of them leased. Those are all being returned to the owners of those units. The 5 portables that we did have are actually replacing, there was a series of yurts that were on Camp Crystal's property, and those were used for the camp counselors and things like that, and they were falling into disrepair, and they had to actually be repaired every single summer, not at a huge expense, but 5 yurts every year, constantly having to repair them. This was kind of a long-term fix to that, and it could also lead to the expansion of the activities and the number of participants at Camp Crystal.
All right, thank you. Any other questions? Any phone calls? Okay, any comments from citizens? I know, I'm asking for citizens first. Any comments? None. All right, Ms. Surton.
Did you say they own portables, right?
Correct.
Okay, didn't hear that. Thank you.
All right, if there's no other discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. All right, action item number 1, the renewal of the 2025 insurance rates. Ms. Jeremchuk.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Board Members, Superintendent Andrew. Renewal of the contracts for health, life, and cafeteria 125 plans are approved by the board on an annual basis. We are recommending approval of the contracts for health insurance, life insurance, and the cafeteria 125 plans for the 2025 plan year as recommended by the district's insurance committee. The district's insurance committee recommends an increase of 3.7% in health insurance premiums, deletion of the $750 deduction plan, and select enhancements to the $1,500 deduction plan effective January 1st, 2025 through December 31st, 2025. The district's insurance committee recommends the following plan enhancements to help mitigate the increase in health insurance costs. Deletion of the blue option $750 deduction plan, change in the HRA amount from $500 to $750 for the blue option $1,500 deduction plan, change in advanced imaging costs from the deduction amount plus 20% to $200 for the blue option's $1,500 deduction plan. With these plan enhancements, the District Insurance Committee recommends an increase of 3.7% in the rate of health plan premiums for the 2025 plan year to fund increased insurance costs. All rates for the Cafeteria 125 plan, inclusive of administration, will renew for the 2025 plan with no increase in any of the plan offerings. For the life insurance plan, the rates are contracted with the standard for a 5-year period ending December 31st, 2028, and are not changing for the 2025 plan year. The superintendent recommends approval of the contracts for health, life, and the cafeteria 125 plans for the 2025 year as presented. Are there any questions?
Any questions? Ms. Certain?
So let's get a motion first before I.
Yeah, so move, give me a motion.
So move with staff recommendation.
It's been seconded by Dr. McNeely. Now discussion. Go ahead.
Ms. Jeremchek, do you have anything like for the premium costs, like by family, whatever? I was just trying to figure out with the increase in the HRA, and I know this has gone through the committee, the insurance committee or benefits committee. I'm not sure what the correct title was, but I was just trying to figure out a comparison in what we're expecting the premium increase to be. And I see there's this increase in the HRA amount of $250, it looks like it, so I was.
There was the premiums included in the attachment, but they are for the new proposed premiums. I can provide you with current premiums later.
All right, that's. Any update on the clinic? Because I think that was also a strategy that was explored or that was shared with the board a couple years ago about trying to curtail costs.
Correct. And we are meeting with the committee next month with a change in my position. I am getting an opportunity to meet with the committee and kind of get caught up on where we are with it.
Thank you.
All right, any other questions? Any citizen input? Any phone call? All right, if nothing else, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Moving on to number 2, 2024-2025 Comprehensive Evidence-Based Reading Plan. Mr. Berry.
Good evening, Madam Chair, board members, Superintendent Andrew, Deputy Superintendent Dr. Atria, district staff, community members. Rule 6A 109401 of the Florida Administrative Code specifies that districts must annually adopt a comprehensive evidence-based literacy plan. We like to call that the SERP. This plan details the role of administration, professional learning, assessment, and curriculum and instruction in the improvement of student learning in the best standards of ELA. A team composed of district staff from teaching and learning, curriculum, assessment, professional learning, and ESE student services, as well as principal representatives, met in May to review last year's plan, as well as to complete a reflection tool as required by the Florida Department of Education. This discussion drove revisions made to this year's plan. The SERP reflection team decided that in 2024-2025, we would focus on providing additional targeted professional learning and support for administrators, teachers, and school literacy leadership teams. This professional learning would emphasize implementation of evidence-based, standard-aligned core curriculum materials in all classrooms. Specific professional learning sessions would be planned and evaluated based on student data outcomes as measured by frequent district common assessments, as well as data from common district trend classroom walkthrough tools currently under development, in addition to teacher and administrator input. We believe the implementation of these 2 new tools, the district trend walk as well as more frequent common assessments, will provide us with access to more timely student data to inform necessary instructional adjustments, as well as timely needs assessments to drive and evaluate professional learning opportunities. The superintendent recommends the board approve the district comprehensive evidence-based reading plan as presented.
Thank you. Need a motion?
Move with staff recommendation.
Second.
Moved by Ms. Certain, seconded by Dr. Rockwell. Is there any discussion? Have a question? You have a question?
Of course.
Go ahead.
Is there anything in the plan that says that every reading instruction in our district must be done by a certified teacher?
Great question, Ms. Abbott. So I don't know that that is in the plan. There are specific requirements for teachers of students who have substantial reading deficiencies, as well as not meeting your level expectations. They are required to have a reading endorsement certification as well as certification in that field.
Yeah. It seems like a lot of the problems could be solved if you had certified teachers teaching reading instead of long-term subs or whatever. But that's a topic that doesn't seem to go anywhere.
All right. Any other comments? Ms. Certain?
Thank you, Ms. Abbott. For what it's worth, Mr. Berry is going to be very gracious. I bent his ear today for about 45 minutes on this because I asked him, a lot of the text of this seems to be the same as in past years, and I told him I felt like we were just moving around chairs on the Titanic, like the ship was still sinking. But my concern and what I'm really wanting to know is that we just don't have all of this stuff that we say we're doing, and that I asked him what is success, because we have about 70% of the black students in our county do not read on grade level from grade 3 on, 3rd grade onward, and what are we doing? We talk about interventions and differentiations, but we're not seeing those outcomes, and we're not seeing significant changes, and I kind of expressed my concern about the low bar of us, only a 3% increase, and that just seems to just be a piddly amount, and I hope he doesn't take my, none of it was meant to be personal. It's just that I feel we have to be moving with urgency to try to address the needs we have and get away from having flowery plans and roses, good words, but really having actionable steps and making adjustments mid-year. I think having certified teachers is step one, but also being able to teach reading, knowing how to teach it, and us supporting and focusing our resources early on in the lower grades to ensure that our students are getting there. So he's assured me or gave me the talk that this is where we're headed, but we just, I share the concern, continue to share the concern. Every year I think that this comes off, I call him and he listens to me rant. So thank you for doing that today. But I'm concerned also that we got, as an organization, some areas are doing it better than others, but that we're not really letting the rubber meet the road so that we can see improved student outcomes. And he and Ms. Black have indulged me today, so thank both of y'all. So, but we gotta be more urgent and be more effective.
Dr. McNeely.
Thank you, Madam Chair. One of the biggest things when you are facing the public as much as we have in the past couple of weeks because of political forums, but one of the main topics at every last forum that I've attended and had to address, what are you going to do about improving literacy in Alachua County? And so with this, how did you say it, SERP? With this plan, in the next 3 forums that's coming up, I will be using some of this. But one of the things that I know we have been just adopted, that new technology, Mira, is that actually beneficial and working well for our students?
That's a great question. Thank you for that, Dr. McNeely. We're really excited about Amira. We've only just begun because of some grant availability of funding at the very end of the spring and over the summer. We've gotten some positive feedback. We've seen some growth in the students that have utilized it. This will be our first full year of implementing it as an additional intervention. We're excited because it connects really nicely with some work we've done with the University of Florida. One of the things they talked to us about is the opportunity to give students more practice with connected text. And Amira, for those of us who may not be familiar with it, it's essentially a computer-assisted support where students have an artificial intelligence tutor, really, that's giving them real-time feedback as they read. So it really, the benefit of it is that the students have more opportunities to read, and so that's really something we're excited about, because one of the things our data shows is even when students are doing a lot better with their accuracy, we want more improvements in their automaticity, and that's something that can help us with that. So we are continuing to move forward with Amira.
So is that technology being able to be used in the homes as well?
Yes, ma'am, it is available at home. Yes.
Oh, wow. Okay. Thank you very much.
Dr. Rockwell.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm sorry I wasn't able to meet with you ahead of time. I've been in the hospital with my son for 4 days, so it's been an interesting month for our family for sure. But some of my biggest questions revolve around UFly. So we were one of the first districts, I believe the first district in the world to implement UFly across the district. And since then, districts across the state of Florida, across the United States, and really throughout the English-speaking world have begun implementing UFly and have seen tremendous results, whereas we are seeing just modest results. And the question I find myself asking is, why are we seeing such modest results when other districts, even ones with similar demographics, are seeing much better results? And when I looked at this plan, I noticed that a lot of our outcome measures are just walkthroughs. And I know that walkthroughs are very valuable for providing coaching, but I'm not sure that that alone can be used as an outcome measure for implementation fidelity of UFly. And I'm very concerned. I know that principals were filling out checklists of implementation fidelity. And I heard that there were some schools where the checklists were coming back, 95% of teachers had straight 5s, but then the principals were saying, our teachers need help implementing. Well, you can't be implementing with 95% fidelity and need help implementing. On a scale of 1 being minimal implementation to 5 being near perfect implementation, if your teachers are getting straight 5s, they don't need help. They're the experts. They're ready to help everyone else. And so I wonder whether we have sat down and gotten true buy-in from our administrators, whether they've seen the incredible results that districts are getting where there's buy-in, whether we have better fidelity measures than just a checklist. I wonder, and I know this is not necessarily you, Mr. Berry, I'm just speaking all my wonderings. I wonder why we don't currently have a UFly coordinator, even though this board allocated funds to that position to be able to assess the fidelity and support implementation. I know as I was getting my master's degree in reading disabilities at UF, one of the things that we discovered about ourselves as graduate students was most of us learned to read with whole language instruction, and we did not receive phonics instruction. And I would imagine that the same is true for a lot of our teaching force. And unlike something like Great Leaps, where anybody who can read can implement it because that's a fluency-based curriculum, UFly requires the instructor to have exceptionally good phonological and phonemic awareness themselves. And I wonder if some of our teachers may need some phonics instruction of their own to be able to implement this as intended, because I know that was one of the things I discovered getting my degree in reading disabilities was, oh, I don't know phonics myself. Of course I'm struggling to teach it to my students. And that was something that in that program where most of my master's courses were taught by Dr. Holly Lane at UF, she made sure that we got that. And so I know that the UFly staff from UF can make sure that our teachers get that. And I know this plan is just kind of an outline of what we do. It doesn't have all the nitty-gritty details, but I'm just not seeing in the plan where we have the training piece to make sure UFly gets implemented, or the implementation fidelity outcome piece to make sure it gets implemented and that retraining takes place where it's not being implemented, because I want to see our district having the same kinds of results as all of the school districts in the state, country, and English-speaking world who are having those phenomenal results.
Thank you for that, Dr. Rockwell, and I appreciate those comments. One positive thing is we do have a UFly Foundations implementation specialist who's starting at the new contract year, so she'll begin on the first day of pre-plan. Actually, we're probably going to sneak her in on our professional learning days. but she will begin, worked real closely with Dr. Lane, so we're excited about having her join us. The other thing is, yes, this SERP document, congratulations, Dr. McNeely, you got that quickly. SERP document is just really outlining the system for professional learning, and one of those pieces that we had found that was a need was we need to look at, teacher practice and instruction in classroom in connection to student performance data, and we've had a lot of student performance data for a long time. Our refinement was making it more frequent and more specific and adding that teacher implementation data. So with our Youth Life Foundation's implementation fidelity, we really did not do it as frequently as we need to. So though it wasn't outlined in here, those trend walks, those other pieces that were alluded to that will drive our professional learning, Youth Life Foundations, especially for K through 2 and then 3 through 5 students who have foundational literacy needs, will be a huge part of that work. This is more of a broad piece. We are, again, very excited about our continued partnership with the Youth Life Foundations team. We have professional learning sessions that we're scheduling for those professional learning days. One for teachers that are brand new to K through 2 ELA, one that is for anybody who's really working with it, maybe a refresher, as well as others we'll be offering throughout the year based on needs. So hopefully some of those concerns will be addressed. There's a lot of things that we wished we had accomplished last year we didn't get to yet, but we're excited about the coming year.
All right. Mr. Bear, and I want to say this, I had a chance to talk to Ms. Roll about this item as well, but one of the things I want to make sure as the public understands, we've been in office since November 2022. And so we haven't even been in office 2 years. And one thing I want, because I know how it is as staff, we don't want our public to think that we're sitting here doing nothing. Because one of the things you have to begin to do is change culture and climate. With the professional development, that is beginning to happen. That's why you have 3 schools that have come out of turnaround in a short period of time, less than 2 years. And so I don't want people to think that nothing's happened, because I'm 22. I was 22 when I came and volunteered in this district. Now I'm 55, and I must say, from 2016 to 23, you had no change when you move with your gap. Now it's beginning to close because people are not just walking around the schools. I'm one of those school board members who visit on a regular basis, and I can see that people are coming in to help. And when those things begin to happen, you will see the change continue. I don't want people to think we're sitting here and nothing good is happening in our schools. And I thank you all for what you're doing, because it's not easy when you're trying to make change. One of the things we did do with those ESSA funds, you put $1 million into the training. But if I would have had those ESSA funds, I would have got everybody from church and all across this community reading, phonics. That's what's going to help. When we went to whole language, that didn't happen. But I don't want to paint the picture to our citizens that your gap is not moving. That's why we also invested, and I'm excited with VPK, because we had some of our VPK classes where 18 out of 21 kids were ready for reading. And if we do more of that and we start early, we're going to begin to see the difference. So I do thank you all for what you're doing, because I know how it is when you're working. I don't want to paint that picture, because we haven't been a full board since 22, and we're not even at the end of 24. So I want to make sure I made those comments. Ms. Abbott.
Yeah, and I don't want to be a Debbie Downer, but I want to be realistic. And this is my second start of a school year, and the changes have to be more than just small changes. We don't have time. We have kids that have been sitting in SI schools for 5, 6, 7 years with not getting the instruction they need to be successful. And so we have to, in all of these things, I read all this stuff and it sounds beautiful, but what happens? Does this go to a school? Does a teacher look at this copy when she's making her lesson plans? I taught in public schools, and I was a pretty good teacher. I wouldn't. It was just like the school improvement plan. I knew what I had to do with my kids, and I did it. And so this is just a lot of work, and if it's, if everybody at every school is looking at it and they're talking about it and it's a living document that they're using, that's great. I'm not that optimistic about it. And the implementation of the U-Fly, I know for a fact at elementary schools that it's not consistent. And so that's a school administrator problem. If you can't get your teachers on board to use a curriculum that's been shown to be effective with kids, then we got a problem there. And I've said this before, this is not new, and I know for a fact this, so I'm not just talking off my head. And I said last year, and I'm saying now, because all those walkthroughs, all those things that happened last year, I don't think there's been that significant of a change, especially in the SI schools. And I've said before, and I believe this, I was an elementary school teacher. Joe Blow can't go in there and teach reading. There's a sequential skills that you teach, and kids have to master those before they can move on to others. And if you don't know that, you're not going to be a very effective reading teacher. And there are a lot of people sitting in those classrooms who God bless their souls, they were just pulled off the streets and given in a class and curriculum, and they're getting some support, but I don't think they're getting support all the time. And for me, at the start of this school year, if I could make a law or a rule, I would say that every reading class had to have a certified teacher in it. And I don't care if you're pulling the principal, the assistant principal, the literacy coaches, and I know I've heard from everybody what a full schedule all these coaches have. That's great. They can take an hour and a half every day to teach reading so that those kids are getting those reading skills. And so if I could make rules and laws and policies, that's what I would do, because we can't go any longer with these minuscule changes that are having some effect, but we've got kids in there who have been sitting in some of these schools their whole elementary education, and they might have been fortunate for a year or two to get a certified teacher who was amazing, and I hope that they did, but there's a good chance that they didn't. And so, and all of you teachers out there, we would give you as much money as we could because we know what your job is like. But we've got to do something to make teachers feel appreciated and supported so that we can get teachers in the classroom. Because if we don't have these teachers in elementary school, especially providing this foundation, by the time they get to middle and high school, it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. And we've got to do something different. And I appreciate all your work on this, but I mean, we've got to make some changes. And someone said up here, I think it was the lady in the pink shirt that said, maybe it wasn't, that we voted for a change. Actually, I think it was the lady sitting right back there. And I agree, and I feel bad when you say that, because I'm sitting here thinking, I thought things would be different this year. I thought we'd be starting off and we'd have all of our classrooms filled with teachers. I thought scores would have improved, and it's just minimal. And for us in this district, it can't be minimal anymore. We've got to do something different. We've got to do something different. And we started Rawlings, and I'm happy about that. But Mr. Andrew will tell you that the way I feel about it is there's not any extra time in the day. So all we've really done is change that calendar. And that will help with the learning loss, but we're not catching those kids up. That if we had another hour in the school day, we could double dose them with reading. And that's how you get these kids caught up. And so, and I'm hoping it's going to be successful. But we got to do different stuff. And the year-round school was the perfect model to get in there and really change things up and make a difference. And I'm hoping that it's still not too late to make some of those changes that can make the difference.
Just a minute. Mrs. Abbott, were you done? Did we have any other discussion? And for the citizen who wants to say something, you can say, we will have another citizen input. You're welcome. Hold your thoughts. Don't lose it.
Have input on this action item?
Oh, I'm so sorry, I don't have the forms.
But I mean, even if she didn't fill out a form, she can still give input on this item, right?
That would be up to the discretion of in this case, the vice chair.
Say that again, attorney.
That would be up to the discretion of the board member running the meeting right now.
Okay.
So she could if you decided to let her.
Please go to the mic.
Call those folks in order, and then anyone who hasn't filled.
All right, but I thought this was not on the subject that we. Okay, all right. Excuse me. Let me call the persons who have done the form, and then you will be the next person. Thank you, Mr. Berry. Tawana Hines.
We just gave,
I couldn't hear you, Mrs. Singh. Okay. No, you have to mash your button, and so the little red, okay, now we can hear you.
Okay, so my name is Tawana Hines. I'm sorry if I don't know all the formal things to say. This will be my first time, and I'm really not a very comfortable person talking in public, but, and I wasn't gonna speak tonight until Ms. Abbott started speaking on having certified teachers in the classroom. And so I do want to say that concerning reassignment of teachers at the end of the year, and part of, I think, Ms. Abbott, that concern is taking a teacher who is very exceptional at what they do, moving them to a certified and out-of-field placement in reading. So I did want to kind of acknowledge that and support your concern. And that's it for now. I'll deal with the rest with however I'm supposed to later. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hines. Dr. Vermont.
Hi, Dr. Vermont again. I'm back. My kids are at Camp Crystal, so I have a lot of time on my hands. But I wanted to speak about reading specifically because, like the board member said, there has not been much movement. I work in Union County schools. It's very different, obviously, than Alachua County schools. We have about, in elementary, 10 teachers per grade level. We do pre-K through 4 at our elementary. We implemented UFly this year. No, it's not being implemented with fidelity with everybody. It's been a difficult transition. And we taught phonics-based. Our curriculum for the past, I don't even know, since I've been there 20 years, has been phonics-based, and we've switched to UFly this year. I hear a lot of talk about what we should be doing differently. I don't hear talk about interventions. Where are your evidence-based interventions? Where is your intervention time for the students that are behind? I want to see specific intervention periods where students are, I know that we are doing a lot of push into the classroom, but there's still some room to kind of push out for intervention time. Where is your tier 3 intervention? Where's your tier 2 intervention? You people should be talking about what interventions are specifically happening for your tier 2 and tier 3 students. If you don't know those answers as a board, that is a problem, because your tier 2 and tier 3 interventions is what's gonna make and help students learn how to read. And I don't think that we are talking about that. About, I would say 2017, I started at Lincoln Middle School, and I think it was Mr. Strappy at the time, wanted me to write a grant for reading-based interventions. Now, I got a slap on the hand from, I don't know, the board for trying to raise money for an intervention program. I wrote a Catalyst grant, and we got money for an intervention program because you guys were still using Read 180. Half the teachers didn't have half the books to do Read 180. Half the teachers didn't know how to do Read 180. You just had a bunch of random teachers trying to do their best with the interventions that they had or didn't have, and nothing got done. And teachers didn't make any progress. So I wrote a grant, we bought the interventions, we started to train the teachers, and then I guess funding got cut. Eventually Mr. Strappy had to leave or whatever it was, but it wasn't implemented. What I'm saying is that you all should be looking at curriculum. Your curriculum and your interventions is probably, and then your MTSS teams at each school is where you should be looking to make some changes. And I don't see any of that ever talked about at this meeting or at anything else. And I'd like to say that we also need to do more support for our ESE students. I never hear anybody talk about the ESE except for maybe Ms. Rockwell.
Thank you, Dr. Vermont. And before our next speaker comes up, let me just say that our staff, as the chairwoman said earlier, they have worked diligently. The teachers probably who are not certified, they are going to have more professional development, more support, more workshops and training. And let me say one other thing. It can't always be left to the teacher, okay? We have families that need to be totally engaged, not only just coming to see a child on the stage for a play, but to be totally engaged with the curriculum, testing, knowing the results, because let me tell you, come 2025, at the end of the school year, we are just inundated, just like we were this year before school closed, with parents coming saying, I didn't know this, I didn't know that. Please know that it cannot all be on the folk who are in our individual buildings. And we have a great parent academy. We need people to be involved with that, and all of the tutoring that goes on in the community as well. I'm not going to rant and rave, but I agree with you totally, teachers and citizens. However, the engagement in our households cannot be left out either. Next speaker, and our chairperson is back.
Thank you, Dr. McNeely.
Those two.
Okay.
I can't remember your name. I do apologize.
Yeah. I think there's someone else that wants to speak as well on action item number 2. You'll be next out there. Thank you.
I'm not an expert, but I raised 2 children and I taught them to read. And by taking, easy books, and we got through those, and then we got to harder and harder books, and I put them in good schools in Orlando. But anyway, my son's in medical school, so he's making it to the top, and my daughter's a techie. But anyway, she works for a very big company. But first of all, let's talk about Fruit Loops. Let's not give the children sugar, please, in the morning. I mean, they can't use their brains if they're crashing, if they're having sugar crashes. They're flying all over the hallways. There are behavioral problems, and the teachers get worn out from the behavioral problems. I have sat in the classroom now for 2.5 years. I've been a substitute teacher and a paraprofessional, and I've seen what goes on in the classrooms. We need to get rid of the children's cell phones and we need to pass a law. I'm a very strict parent. I was a very strict parent, and that's how I got my son and my daughter, into where they are today. We should pass a law that you can't play video games in the schools. The teachers are using that, and they're not teaching the whole period. And there's a waste of time going on. These children go home at 3:30, whatever it is, and they play video games until they fall asleep at midnight. They're having enough video games. They're having enough of all that stuff. Every minute in the classroom should be spent, if they finish their work, their computer work or their math work. The math teachers are fabulous. There's a lot of fabulous teachers that work every single minute, but there's other teachers that work for 10, 15 minutes, and then they let the kids play video games the rest of the period. It's true, or play on their phones for the last 30, 40 minutes. And the teachers are not doing their job. And I have not reported these people because I didn't want to, get in trouble myself. I was afraid of repercussions. And, but this is what's going on in the schools, and it's cheating the children. They should be on the computers doing their level remedial reading work, or remedial whatever work, and getting writing help. I've seen so many kids who can't read a regular newspaper article. They can't make sense of it. They can't write a summary of it or a logical essay or anything like that. The kids need a lot more help. I've seen it. I'm very sorry to say. Like I said, there are some fabulous, fabulous teachers that are working very, very hard, very, very, very hard. But let's pass a law. No cell phones in the classrooms and no video games allowed to be played at all during school hours. That would help a lot, and just keep the kids busy doing academic things. Thank you. That's my opinion.
Thank you. Ms. Poe, do you want to come back and speak on this item?
Sorry if this is really choppy, but I get very nervous. This is in regards to having certified teachers in these SI schools where the learning gaps are bigger. I was a part-time intern at Shell Elementary from 2016 to 2017. From 2017 to 2018, I was a full-time intern. 2018 to 2019, I started teaching, and I got needs improvement as my VAM score. And like first-year teachers have it rough. It's hard. I get it. I did need improvement. I'm not here to say that I didn't. But then I worked there until 21 and 22. Every single one of my students got a 2 or higher on their reading fast test, and I was told that I still need improvement because of my first year of teaching, because of like flaws in the system and COVID and this and that. So I was moved to a different school, and I was replaced with a first-year teacher. Even if I needed as much improvement on my 4th year of teaching as I did my first year, I knew the community, I knew the families, I knew the schools. I'd been there for several years, and there's no way that a first-year teacher fresh out of college was better than me in my experience. So I think that policy and like however that happened, because it wasn't just me who experienced this, there was like 3 teachers who were moved from Shell to other schools, and I think that has a lot to do with like the achievement gap and all of these issues that we're facing. Teach the teachers who are in the school, teach the teachers who want to be there. I was devastated when I got moved. I loved Shell, and I loved those kids. And I called so many people in the county, in the state. I called DeSantis so that I could stay at Shell Elementary, and I got moved. And it's just, excuse me, I'm so sorry.
All right, take your time.
But even if I did need that much improvement, teach the teachers who want to be there how to be better, because the teachers who want to be there are going to be the ones who can get the job done. Thank you.
What year did you say that was? 2016, you said
I was a
17?
part-time intern in 2016 and 17. I was a full-time intern 2017, 2018. 2018 school year was my first year, and I was a 4th grade teacher, and they have the VAM scores, and then I was moved to 3rd grade, so I wasn't even able to fix it.
Okay.
So this flaw in the system and COVID and this and that pushed me out because of a 4 or 5-year-old score. And if like we don't grade our kids based on how they do in kindergarten when they're in 5th grade, it doesn't make sense to do it to the teachers. So
Okay, I just want, thank you.
Thank you.
What year? You had a certain,
Thank you. There was one thing I noted on page 26, just to, not to prolong the time, but one of the assurances is that those things we said with intensive reading interventions to be provided in summer reading camps, but I made the note on here, and I didn't mention this to Mr. Berry, of us really looking at this, is that we will assign staff without the credentials to teach our neediest students for 180 days, but then in the summer, for just about 15 days to correct that, we are putting them in an intensive reading thing, extended school year. And I think this goes back to something, Ms. Abbott said, and our teacher that Ms. Pope, I think is her name, Ms. Pope just said, like she was moved because that's the state rule. Like we don't have any, with a school, it falls into school improvement, they can only have a certain number of teachers that have a load that needs improvement VAM. So it's really out of like the district's hand. I think it's a crazy rule. I mean, I do. I think.
I called the state and they told me it was you guys, and then you guys said it was the state, so it was just very confusing. I talked to attorneys and.
it's the state though. It's not
Yeah.
us.
But it is, and so I guess like for us, we really, as an organization and as a board, I think we lean in on our district leadership to ensure that the staff that we're putting in front of our students, because the reading skills are so critical to students doing well as they progress or matriculate through school, we have to make sure that we have folks who know how to teach. They've got their reading endorsement and that they're really doing that. And I know we have that out. The board will get a list of teachers that are out of field to vote on and approve, right? And that comes after school is done. And I think parents are also supposed to be notified. And Dr. McNeely, I know I heard you say earlier about, what the parents need, but I'm gonna tell you from when, I don't disagree with you, but I also want to say, and as I told Mr. Berry earlier today, is that our neediest school students, sometimes all they have is a school district.
That's it. So we need all our staff, and we need all our resources, we need everybody like really like on their P's and Q's, because that's all they have. They don't have a parent. Like for me, my grandmother, once I got past third or fourth grade, she couldn't help me because she wasn't educated. Wasn't that she wasn't interested now, and she didn't want it. So I don't want us to like, if a parent can't help their student or they don't have the capacity to do that, we're actually investing good money. It might not be a lot of money, but we're spending taxpayer dollars on salaries, and we really need everybody to bring their A game, and it needs to be an urgency. I mean, Mr. Berry has gotten from Ms. Abbott and Dr. Rockwell what I gave him earlier, but he'll tell you I said that. Sometimes all kids have, some of our students that are living in poverty or who, school is it for them. And like, I guess that's why I'm such an advocate for public school, because we have to take everybody. We don't get to choose the students that we want. But if a student gets a high quality, a good public school education, look, they could become functioning citizens and change their whole life, the whole trajectory of their life. I tell people, I'm Exhibit A. So I think with the family engagement and the things that we say we're gonna do as an organization, you know, Mr. Berry and Mr. Andrew, we need to do those things. They don't just need to be things on a form. Like I told Mr. Berry, I know this is, the state gave us this form and we have to do these things, and we make certain assurances in here, but we have to make sure that we're doing them. And we have to lean in on our principles. Mr. Abbott, I told Mr. Berry, you fly, that is a principle thing. And if the teachers aren't doing it, if that's what we say we're doing, it's not optional. I actually had a principal tell me, oh, I can't make the teacher do this because they'll quit. I'm like, well, they might as well quit if they're not gonna teach the kids how to read. They might as well go ahead and go. But it's a partnership between the families as well as the school districts. But when we have children that come, they may not have anybody at home that can help them learn how to read, because we gotta realize that the children that are in school right now, Alachua County Public Schools, if they came through, some of those students weren't served very well. And we have students that are come out of matriculated from elementary school into middle school and into high school, and they've started their families. You know, those kids that are in high school, we don't have interventions set up in place, I don't think, to really get them caught up where they're proficient. We test them and coach them up so they get a concordant score and they can graduate, but they're not like at a place where they can help their children a lot of times. Just showing interest is good, I'm not saying that, but they may not be able to really do a lot of direct teaching and if they don't get good core instruction. And one thing I can say is from doing the walkthroughs at our SI schools, there were a lot of times that I did not see, and I didn't speak it, but I didn't see good instruction being done. The teachers were doing the best that they could, but the person that was suffering, so to speak, were those students that were sitting in the classroom. So it is really like no small task that we have here. Public education is a jewel that we have, that the United States, you know, that's one of our tenets. And I really want us to do that really well. And I don't think we have in the past. And then we got to have some urgency. So I won't go back through that. Thank you. Dr. Rockwell.
I wouldn't expect to see this on the CERT, but I wonder if if UF is offering any reading endorsement grant programs right now, if we could maybe reach out to them. When I got my master's degree in reading disabilities, it was part of a grant program that funded teachers. Dr. Beeland and Dr. Arduzer, two of our wonderful elementary school teachers, were in that, elementary school principals were in that cohort with me. And among many other teachers in Alachua County and some of our neighboring counties. And I know UF offers those programs frequently, and that may be an opportunity for some of our teachers to get a reading endorsement or even a master's degree fully paid for that works around their teaching schedule. So something to look at.
Dr. McNeely?
Madam Chair, I turned my light off. I think we beat this horse enough.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Were there any phone calls? I didn't get. All right. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. All right. Moving on to item number 3, options for virtual instruction. Mr. Andrew.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The superintendent recommends that the school board approve the Florida District Franchise Agreement by and between Florida Virtual School with the option for a term of 1 year and that would be the academic school year of July 1st, 2024 through June 30th of 2025.
All right, is there a motion? So moved by Ms. Abbott and seconded by Dr. McNeely. Is there any discussion? Dr. Rockwell?
I just had a question. Is this, I know that we have been using the Florida Virtual School platform for our 6th through 12th grade e-school students. Is this an extension of that contract, or are we expanding the use of the platform?
It's an extension of the contract that we're currently following. So all the operation of eSchool and how we're doing it will remain the same.
And our K-5 students will remain on our district curriculum?
Yes, ma'am.
Perfect,
And it'll be
thank you.
all through Alachua eSchool, and so with our teachers. And I don't know, just to share with the board and to make sure everyone's up to date on the recent legislation, we were required up until June 30th of 2024, so just recently, each school district was required to provide at least one option for part-time and full-time virtual instruction. As of July 1st, 2024, 1002.45 changed that. It removed the requirement. So that is just recent legislation that I doubt everybody, there was so much, as we know, there's so many changes, but that everyone should be aware of. Districts across the state still may create their own virtual instruction program, or they could contract with FLVS, another approved virtual instruction provider, or another district, but they don't have to do so. That's the biggest change in the legislation, is they have totally removed that requirement. We've gradually seen you don't have the half credit, you don't have to have that to graduate. Now they're removing the requirement for part-time or full-time virtual instruction.
All right, thank you. Is there a motion? Oh, you had a question?
Mr. Andrews, so are you moving to eliminate eSchool at all? I guess, since this is just a one-year agreement, I know it's not required that we have it, but I'm trying to figure out, it's a mode of us being able to serve certain students. I don't know how many are taking this route here, but with the options of choice that folks have, this is a way that students could stay connected with the district. So you mentioned that this is a one-year agreement, so why just one versus 3 like we've had in the past?
1 year does give us the flexibility to continue to evaluate the service, the number of students we're serving. And so what we've done too, just so the public knows, is, as a reminder, Alachua eSchool has moved to Duval Early Learning Center at 2106 Northeast 8th Avenue. So it's just a change in location. As I mentioned to Dr. Rockwell, eSchool is going to continue to operate as we have for the 24-25 school year. New students will be accepted, and individuals, families could contact Mrs. Alvarez. She's still the principal of Alachua eSchool, and they could contact her at 352-955-7584. The offices there are open Monday through Thursday following our summer schedule. So this gives us that flexibility built in, a one-year contract rather than a 3-year contract, because we haven't had an option to truly explore this, dig into it, workshop it, share it with the board, all the data that we could collect on eSchool for you.
Okay, so I guess the expectation then would be probably mid-year that we do some type of analysis and we have some workshops where
Absolutely.
the board would make a decision whether or not we sunset eSchool or not.
Yes, ma'am. We would want to collect enrollment data, look at the budgetary impacts, evaluate how many labs are open now in our brick and mortar schools, because that has dwindled because we've seen the drop in virtual instruction basically in those labs. I think most high schools are down to 1 at the most, because students aren't required to take virtual instruction, a half credit or more for graduation.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
No other discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. All right, moving on to number 4, solar panel settlement. Ms. Siegel.
Thank you, Madam Chair. A little background on this. About 8 or 10 years ago, maybe a little more, solar panels were put on most of the facilities in the district. Some of them started, I think, in 2011, some in 2013. One of the facilities that had solar panels was the Terwilliger we call it Old Terwilliger now, the Terwilliger facility on 62nd. It's no longer necessary for us to have those. We're not running a school there. And there was some decisions about whether we're going to be able to tear it down or what can we do with it. But it's not financially feasible for us to try to rebuild that school. So pursuant to the contract, I told them we have to terminate this. We came to a disagreement about cost. And so we went to a settlement. We had a choice in the contract to have a mediation. We went to the mediation, and quite frankly, of all the years I've been doing litigation, I had no idea what a good, fair settlement would be. So I asked one of our district folks to find some solar installer outside of this area and find out how much it would cost to take down, I think there are 342 panels, just to take them down and haul them away. And they gave us a quote. So we went to mediation, and I was able to blame you all and say, I have to have this approved by the board, and I can't go any higher than it would cost us to hire somebody to do it. And we were able to settle it for that amount. So that's what's in the settlement agreement. And it's all your fault for, I could say, my board members are very cautious about spending money.
All right.
So it worked.
All right.
The superintendent asked that you approve the settlement, and we will go ahead and pay this and they've given us those panels now, we can just tear them down.
Okay. All right, is there a motion?
Second.
It's been moved and properly seconded. Is there any discussion? Any citizen input? Phone call. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. All right, moving on to number 6, amendments to policy 5500. Ms. Siegel.
Yes, this is the second reading for an amendment to policy 5500, the student conduct, and elementary and secondary codes of student conduct. The superintendent recommends the board approve the amendments of the policy as noted. You were given the documents that show what amendments have been made at this point. This is the second reading. So if you decide tonight to to approve the policy, that will be the new policy.
All right.
And I'm just the draftsman of the policy, so I will defer, I think, to Dr. Edwards on any questions about the Code of Student Conduct.
All right. So you made your recommendation?
We recommend that the code be, the documents attached, the modifications to the code be approved as stated.
All right, is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second? It's been moved and properly seconded. If there's any discussion? Dr. Rockwell.
So I've lost track of how many times I've brought up this concern, but one of my ongoing concerns with our student code of conduct is that we do not have a clear layout of the progressive discipline and what the possible repercussions are for different infractions. So the administrators, BRTs, and deans have that information. And I understand that there's a concern about making sure that each student who has a behavior issue is treated as an individual and that their personal situation is taken into account. And I 100%, as a special educator myself, believe that that is incredibly important, and we need to follow students' IEPs, consider the impacts of their disabilities, and even if they don't have a disability, look at them as an individual and what may be going on. But at the same time, nowhere else in society do we have laws with consequences for breaking them where we don't know ahead of time what the potential consequences are. So if I break a law and I go to trial and am found guilty, ahead of time I know what the minimum sentencing is and what the maximum sentencing is. And I know that during the sentencing, my personal situation will be taken into account, but there's still a minimum and a maximum within which the judge will work to grant that sentence. And our students and their families and even our teachers don't know what that minimum and maximum is within which our behavior teams at our schools are working. And I think this does a disservice to everyone because students don't know what the consequences are for a first infraction, a second infraction, et cetera. Parents don't know, teachers don't know. And then we also have very inconsistent implementation across schools. And because parents, teachers, and students don't know what the implementation expectations are, it would be very difficult to have checks and balances on that to say, hey, you gave me a consequence that is outside the parameters in the student code of conduct for what the punishment for this infraction could be. So, and, you know, again, we could have a disclaimer in that student code of conduct stating that this may not hold for students with disabilities, but I still think that we need a matrix that gives clear guidance on what the potential consequences are for each type of infraction, for a first offense, a second offense, a third offense. Other districts have this. I've brought this up with this year's student code of conduct and with last year's student code of conduct, and my stance on it has not changed. We continue to have behavior problems at our schools, and I believe that one of the reasons is that we are not implementing our student code of conduct or our tiers of intervention consistently across classrooms, across schools. And I don't think we can't even evaluate whether what we're doing works if we're not implementing it with consistency and fidelity. And I don't think that we are. From visiting schools and speaking to teachers and parents, I'm pretty sure that we are not. And I think that having a very clear behavior matrix with the progressive discipline laid out would really help with that. And even though I know that these changes are necessary and I appreciate that staff has listened to other feedback and made adjustments, I just can't in good conscience keep voting for a student code of conduct that I think is missing such a critical piece.
Let me ask a question. Have we, because I know we talked about this last time, I know I asked for input from deans as far as the student code of conduct, have we? Because I agree with some of the things Dr. Rockwell is saying. Has that happened? Whoever could answer that question.
Can you restate your question? Have you asking?
Well, when we talked about this last time, when we talked about a matrix, I know some districts have one that's separate for people, kids with disabilities, and then we have the regular, student code of conduct for all other students, but also the input as far as the level, so we'll know, because as one who's always pushed behavior, consistency across the board is how we change behavior. And so I asked for input because I'm a believer that those who are in the schools, who are dealing with the behaviors, that input, and especially from deans, is so important. And have we had that input?
We have.
As I asked about that, I think at 2 meetings ago.
Yes, ma'am. We have had input from deans. Ms. Black, I'm going to ask you to come and share what the process has been. And we have had discussions about what has existed in other districts and the changes that have kind of come and gone at other districts related to that and that kind of history. So there has been a lot of internal discussion about the requests that have been made by board members as we've reflected upon this, and then also in previous times when we've talked about the matrix, also researching what those things look like, not just in districts in the state of Florida, but across the country.
Yes.
Ms. Black.
Thank you. The consistency in your code of conduct sits on page 20 in, let me see, is it the elementary code? And I'm not going to give you the page number, that's in the secondary. But it's within the several factors that must be considered. And so every dean, teacher, principal, assistant principal looks at these factors. It talks about the seriousness of offense, planning, impulse, or self-defense, age, disability, strength of evidence, the attitude, cooperation, remorse, and the disciplinary history. A number of years ago, this district did have a matrix within the body of the code. what was discovered, or what we learned, was that matrix was not effective. Because it does say this could be the lowest end of the consequence, a verbal warning. This could be the highest end, a suspension. You still, as you look through it, what a kindergarten student does impulsively, you're not going to give the same consequence that you would give to a 10th grader who plans it. So in creating a matrix, it almost comes down to doing it almost by grade or age and by some of these factors. So the discipline committee pulled out that matrix because they didn't recommend it. They thought it was more confusing because the debates within the schools and the debates among staff and the debates among a teacher that says, well, you could have suspended them. And the assistant principal said, but as a 6-year-old, no discipline history, I did not choose to do that. So in the end, it did not serve us well to have it within the code. Now, if it is the will of the board to have one in the code, we can do that. But that was the reason it was taken out of the code of conduct and not put back in. It was the reason, though, however, we have a matrix that is shared and every dean, AP, principal is trained on. Because with even having that matrix, we didn't discover the consistency that we thought it might bring. What we discovered was more debate between parents and schools and between teachers and administrators because of the way they looked at it. So I understand the concern, and you're correct, many districts have a matrix. And if this board wants a matrix, one can be put in the code of conduct. But it is not the recommendation of your discipline committee that consists of administrators, teachers, deans, BRTs, and district staff. And they have discussed it, and they did not recommend it to you. However, if that is the will of this board, one can be developed and put in the code.
All right, thank you.
And I also just want to add that when we're talking about, because most of the concern that has arisen from board members has been related to implementation. So internally, our discussions have been about how do we ensure that there is a consistent implementation across the district. Not so much about the matrix itself, but about the behavior as it relates to how we are viewing that matrix, how we're implementing it, what are the discussions that are happening on campus, and how are we having oversight to those things. And so we've talked a lot about and have plans for how we are moving forward with some changes related to our meetings with our deans in the upcoming year to ensure that we have more consistency across the board. And so they have had regular meetings. I don't want to make it seem as though they have not. But what we are discussing in those meetings and how we can provide support to teachers within the school building on a more consistent basis in order to address those needs is where we are focusing on for the upcoming school year.
All right, Ms. Abbott.
I agree with Dr. Rockwell, and I think one of the advantages of having a matrix is that, and I think it should not even be a minimum and a maximum. It should be, if you are defiant, the first thing you're going to do is this, the second thing is that, the third thing is that. And it should be very cut and dried. And I know there are exceptions to rules, and you would hope a good administrator could look at that and do it. But for the most part, for 90% of the time, it should work for every child. Because when you get to the point you're saying, well, this child it becomes so subjective, and so nobody knows. Nobody knows. The teacher doesn't know, the deans don't know, the parents don't know, the students surely don't know, because it is not implemented consistently from child to child. And I think, our behavior is kind of out of control in the classroom, and I think it'd be very beneficial to have something like that. And so I'm for having a matrix, and it might not have worked years ago, but if you have something that's very clear, and if teachers, deans, principals, students, and parents are educated on it, and if it's followed consistently, I bet some behaviors would improve.
All right, Ms. Servant.
Thank you. I'm not so sure I'm buying into the matrix thing. I want to thank you all for taking out defiance, because that's too subjective. But I was going to ask Dr. Edwards, had you all looked at, like, say, Orange County, and I'm not sure if, Dr. Rockwell, you've had a chance to look at that. Did you see that, how they had it? It's not like a matrix, it's really like level 2 things, and it has misbehaviors that are considered level 2. And then at the bottom, it has, or on here, level 2 consequences, and it has a list of consequences. I think I can kind of embrace this more so than like a matrix, because to me, when I hear matrix, it's really like kind of cut and dry, and you're taking some of, like she said, somebody said a kindergartner may do something, and it's a kindergartner, he's young, he or she's young, and then if a 5th grader does something, their capacity, to do that. So I'm wondering if you all have looked at something like this, and maybe you could make some type of revision to have something like a list of consequences for behaviors. We have them level 1, 2, 3, and 4 type things. And I'm not sure if something like that, and maybe you could circulate that with the board before the next meeting. And maybe that we can get some agreement around that, instead of it just being a matrix. But I do, we've made a lot of investments in behavior, in staffing, and in a program that was software that was in the consent agenda and some other things. And, I don't know, it can't be scripted. I do know that. And I do know we can't have too much professional latitude, because sometimes you'll get inconsistent implementation for a number of reasons, but maybe we can find some kind of happy medium. Like I said, I'm not sure why you guys didn't bring something back like that, or, whatever. And there is a little small addressing of that on page 20, like Ms. Black did, but maybe if we could, maybe we move, instead of voting to approve this tonight, we still would have time, since we're not printing it, we'd have time to come back to another meeting to approve this right before school starts.
Yeah.
If
you tell.
Actually, we do have some additional time. Rulemaking is 90 days, but we'd only have to the next meeting, August 6th. So it would have to be prepared and ready to be on the agenda by next Monday or Tuesday. But if any time after that, we'd have to start the whole rulemaking process again. But we could take this one rule and bring it back one more time, and we'd still be within the confines.
All right. So
And we do still print some. We don't do it at the capacity we did before, because we do the digital copies, so we have a little bit more flexibility. We probably could get things printed within that time frame for parents. The other thing that I think I would be remiss to not mention, and so I will, as it relates to the matrix, is that when we're looking at being hard and fast and consistent and ensuring that students receive consequences, I want to be very clear that we also look at our data and the disproportionality that exists in our district. Mm-hmm. So when we start saying that we are going to use this matrix and we're not going to have any flexibility to not have referrals, are the children who are most likely to receive those referrals and disciplined children are those children who are of color. I have some concerns because it works both ways. Mm-hmm. And so if we make it such that there isn't any professional latitude for people to make decisions about things, that could also jeopardize a population of students who are already very challenged within our district. And so that has been part of the discussion as well, because we're trying to minimize the level of disproportionality that exists in the district. So I just want to make sure that I put that on the table as well too, because sometimes when you have everything just in a box, you got to deal with it being in the box too. And so we could be putting ourselves in a position where some of our children of color, our males, our students with disabilities or what have you, could end up with more consequences and more harsh consequences than people who are working with children in order to provide interventions, because that has been part of the process to make a change in behavior.
All right, Dr. McNeely.
Madam Chair, I'd like to move that we will pause this tonight, come back on August the 6th, once we've had some more indication from Dr. Edwards. Attorney Siegel won't be with us, but
You will have a very fine attorney in my place.
yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
And so if we could do that, I would move for us to hold off for this vote and wait until August 6th.
Yes.
Madam Chair, can I ask a question?
Yes.
We'd like some direction from the board. If you want us to look at a matrix to embed within this code, or if you're asking us, as we've got on level 4, we list a certain number of consequences, are you asking that we list the offenses that are particularly in a level 4 next to those consequences? What is the will of the board?
Go ahead, Dr. Brown.
I had an additional comment about this. So with regards, Mrs. Black, to what you said about age levels, I think it makes perfect sense to have different matrices for K2, 3, 5, middle school, high school, and to not have the matrices apply to students with disabilities if their disability is impacting their behavior. And to what Dr. Edwards said about disproportionality and professional discretion, I think there are two areas that we need to look at. So one is teachers don't write referrals for every misbehavior. There's a lot of teachers in this room. You don't write referrals for every misbehavior. There's a lot that you manage within your own classroom. And making sure that our teachers have training on what behaviors could be cultural differences, which, you know, a lot of us, if we went to teacher preparation programs, we didn't, but not all of our teachers had that luxury. You know, making sure that teachers recognize our own biases. For instance, students who are taller or who have matured a little bit earlier physically, we often perceive them as older and more capable. Even when they're in a classroom of all students the same age, the tallest kid in the class might be, subconsciously, we might hold them to a little bit of a higher standard because they just seem older, they look older. So training for things like that to make sure that within our classrooms, all of our teachers are implementing their classroom management consistently and, you know, not targeting particular groups of students for referrals. But then additionally, each referral is reviewed by either the administrator or the dean BRT to determine whether it's going to be recorded in the system as an incident, correct? Not every referral results in, is that correct?
That is correct. That is reviewed by either the BRT, dean, in consultation with the teacher, or sometimes an administrator to determine if this is a referral that's going to result in a consequence or more an instructional moment.
Right. So, I mean, if we have a kindergarten student who did something impulsively, even with a matrix, the administrator has the discretion to say, we're not going to record this as.
That is a concern, particularly if you're elementary BRTs, because if we're calling for consistency, then what we should be saying is this will result in this.
Right.
Otherwise, we don't have a way to do that. We have gone back to a subjective level on the part of an individual. And I will confess to this board and to the people in the audience that we all have our certain biases. Mine is a child that whines. And I said this to one of the board members. If a child whined in my classroom, I wanted them expelled. Now, I know that was my personal bias, and I did not ever do that. But I am honest enough to say that that's where I would come from. Now, knowing that about myself, probably that child got away with more, maybe, because I'm a human. Our schools and our classrooms have human teachers in them, and we bring what we bring. So I hear what you're saying, Dr. Rockwell, but I wonder if that's the beginning of inconsistency.
Yeah.
There.
We don't want to.
Well, I mean, right now we have inconsistency at every level because we have inconsistency in determining whether the referral will even be acted upon,
why I think-
and inconsistency in the consequences. So if we could at least remove one level of inconsistency, I mean, we're arguing that we shouldn't rely on the discretion of whether the referral gets processed, but we should rely on whether we actually have a consequence. I'm a little bit confused about whether we want to view each incident individually or have consistency, and at what level is it more problematic to have inconsistency? To me, it's less problematic to look at the referral and say, this is a kindergartner with no previous behavior referrals who did something impulsively. We're just not going to do anything about this, versus, oh, you know, this is my friend's son and there's no like real behavior matrix, so I'm just going to kind of do what I want to do.
You can have that with a matrix.
I mean, you can, but there's absolutely, but at least there's a check and balance because everyone can see that matrix. That's,
No, I think we're getting a little bit, we're confusing a little bit more. So at this point, we have tabled. I would like to follow up and bring it back for the 6th, but we need to have a little bit more discussion. That way, when we're meeting with Mr. Andrew, or if we can schedule some meeting with you so that we can understand and then bring this back before we make a decision. Because I still don't think, because I've had, you know, deans reach out and say they haven't had enough input, but I also don't want to make sure we tie our hands. But consistency across the board, whatever we have in place, that means everybody has to follow. And we want to be consistent, so no matter if a child transfers from Gainesville High School over to East Side High School, they understand what it is. And so at this point, I think we just need to table it, look at it some more before we put a matrix in there that may close us off, because we know we want to be fair. That's that. We want to be fair. We know biases exist, but I think we need to have a little bit more discussion on this before we make a decision.
What we can
Madam
do
Chair.
is bring back to you 2 different options.
Right.
One with a matrix, and we'll bring you one that is similar, because we did look at Orange counties, and we have discussed whether or not to add those things in. And then the board will have both in front of them. I am going to ask for a little latitude, because this should be an agenda item to Ms. Green by next Monday and Tuesday. I will be out tomorrow and Thursday for a medical procedure, so I'd like you to give me a little bit longer in which to produce this document for you and still allow it to be on the next board meeting. So I'm asking for your permission for that.
And I'm going to ask board members, when we get this information, please go ahead and get with Ms. Black or Dr. Edwards, and you all get your questions answered so we have a full understanding when we come back on August 6th.
Okay?
Yes,
Madam Chair, just for the sake of our minutes and we're clear what action is being taken, we have a motion and a second pending right now. Am I correct? Did Dr. McNeely make the
Yes.
motion? So the simplest thing to do would be for you to withdraw your motion to approve this.
All right.
Okay.
I can do that.
All right, so and then now you also have a motion to table this until the date certain of the August 6th meeting.
all right, I forgot all about
If
Yes.
you will say that, and I'll second it.
withdraw. He's
I'm
asking you to
withdrawing it,
withdraw your
and
motion.
then restate, you're asking me, Attorney Delaney, to restate what about pausing.
I think everybody's heard it, and most importantly, Ms.
Okay.
Peck has heard it.
Thank you.
Just to
We just need
withdraw.
a second
Second to
for
withdraw.
the motion to table.
Tina was seconded to
All right,
table to August
thank you.
6th.
All right, all right, so,
Everybody in favor of tabling it to take it up on August 6th? Madam, I recommend that you call for the vote on that.
okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. All right. I see lights going.
Oh, I'm sorry, I was going to say
Oh, okay.
say I don't think we should have a matrix, but.
Okay, all right. We're gonna make sure we all clear, so when we come back, we'll be able to vote on August 6th. Thank you all. All right, moving on to number 7.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The board held a first reading on this amendment to Policy 5410 on May 21st, 2024, in a public hearing on June 18th. The amendments to the policy and the progression plan are shown in the attached documents. A summary of the amendments are set forth in the Statement of Purpose and Effect. Based on the input received at the public hearing, additional amendments were made. The superintendent recommends the board approve the amendments to Policy 5410, student progression, and the amendments to the 2024-2025 student progression plan as presented.
Is there a motion?
so moved.
All right, is there a second? Is there a second? Your microphone is not on. All right, it's been seconded by Dr. McNeely. All right, is there any discussion?
Yes.
Ms. Abbott?
I'm still against the changing the grading schedule. And it says here, the highlighted area on here says, based on input received at the public hearing on 6/18, the grading system for elementary school, and it's for middle and high school also, was revised to reflect an F is at 50 to 59%. And so I was thinking back to that meeting, and I know I made comments about it. I think Ms. Certain made comments about it. There was a teacher here who made a comment about it, but I'm not sure what input was given to move this along. I thought there was input for and against it, so that's the first question I have. But I am against changing the grading system, as I stated the last time.
All right. Dr. Rockwell?
I support changing the grading system. I assume we all got a stack of articles of the research that backs this as evidence-based practice. And, you know, I think if we do make the change, we need to collect very, very good data to see what impact it has had. Find out whether we have more student absences, more not turned in assignments. My other suggestion, and this may be something that we have to, if we have wiggle room in our 90 days, have to do the same thing as we did last time in table, but my other suggestion is one of the concerns that I heard about this at the public hearing was that a student who tries their best and still fails gets the exact same score as a student who didn't even turn in the assignment. And I think we have wiggle room. I mentioned that when I started teaching, we did not input numeric grades. We inputted into our electronic grade books letter grades. And so an F counted as a 0, an A counted as a 4. A 4 plus a 0 is a 4. Divide by 2, you get a 2, which is a C, which is a huge difference from a student who tries their best and only gets a 20%, 100 plus 20, you don't get the C. But what I did do, because there is a difference between I tried my best and I failed, and I decided not to do my work. So you can, back then I would input a missed assignment as a double F. And then an A plus a double F averages out to a D. So there is a difference between I didn't do my work at all and I tried but still failed. And so with this adjustment to the numeric grading system, my suggestion is we look mathematically at what would make sense and count a non-turned in assignment as maybe a 25 or a 30 as opposed to a 50, so that there is a difference between I did my best and I still failed versus I didn't bother to do my work. Just because I know that that was one of the biggest concerns, was that we might have students who don't bother to turn in the assignment, especially if it's something that's hard for them that they know they won't do well on, if they're going to get a 50, whether they turn it in or not.
All right, Ms. Abbott. Did I have my light on? You didn't have your light on. Ms. Abbott.
I mean, I don't think there's anywhere in society where you can get 50% for doing nothing. If you don't come to work, they're not going to pay you 50% of your salary. And I feel like we're teaching a wrong lesson that if I don't turn in the work, I should not get any credit for it at all. If I did my best and I got a 30%, I got a 30%. It doesn't mean that I know 50% of the material or that I've even, and as a teacher, if I were grading a paper and a child got a 20%, a child got a 50%, that gives me a lot of information. And so I don't even know how we've gotten to this point to where we would even suggest a change like this.
All right, Ms. Certain.
Thank you. And I am, after really deliberating over this, I don't think we should change it. And I have this quote that rolls around in my mind from a former president. It says we have the soft bigotry of low expectations. And I think that's what we're setting up some kids for. And I won't go back about my son, because I had to ride him, okay? But the problem that I really have, that it's not what we would do in society. And then with some students that are in our school district, because they are, the grade, having a low grade is kind of the warning signal for parents that something's not right. And then having if they're passing grade, I think we'll just get into more grade inflation. Folks will say, my student is passing all, Dr. McNeil, you probably can attest to this. They pass all their class, have all A's and B's. What do you mean they're not going to graduate? And they made all these grades, these good grades. And so I'm not trying to conflate, achievement on standardized testing or the state assessments with grades, but that is kind of like the gatekeeper. And I don't think we want to, with our students, lower the standards so much that they're getting kind of, meeting the halfway mark for not putting forth any effort. I don't know if the compromise is doing something else, but I think it's a big change right now to make and to tell teachers to do something else for students who are not really doing the work. I think a lot of teachers, from what I've been hearing, they already have some type of grade down. If you hand in work late, instead of getting a B, you would get a C or something like that. So I don't know. I just think we got to proceed cautiously with this, and I just can't. I don't think that's a good change at this particular point in time. Maybe I'm not sure what motivated the change in the policy, but I read some of the articles, but I'm not sure. So I was going to offer the amendment that we. This policy here, that we don't do that.
Okay, let's get citizen input. I do have one, Ms. Karen Kearney. Yeah, just push the button when you go up, state your name.
Your time won't start.
He had cut it on for you. It's not, once you see red, it's on. Ms. Kearney.
Good evening, board members and Superintendent Andrew. My name is Karen Kearney, and I have been a high school teacher in Alachua County for 22 years. A lot has changed in education during that time. I have seen many issues come to the attention of our school board. In all of these years, I have never, ever spoken at a board meeting, even though I have had all kinds of opinions about topics and controversies that we have faced. But I cannot sit quietly by as you discuss this grading scale issue. I know we can use this balanced grading scale for students with IEPs. I am not referencing that. I am speaking tonight in opposition to making this our grading policy. I have heard the arguments in favor of this scale, that a 0 can be too overwhelming to overcome, that our GPA is determined on a 4-point scale, so our grading should be as well. Respectfully, I disagree. If the only assessments teachers used were summative and high stakes, say 2 or 3 tests in a grading period, I might see your point. However, most teachers have a multitude of ways we assess our students, formative and summative. Yes, tests and quizzes, but also classwork, participation, group or individual presentations, entrance or exit tickets, bell work. I could go on and on and on. One of the unfortunate consequences of COVID has been student apathy. I understand that students, to say nothing of teachers, are struggling with all kinds of mental health issues these days. Trust me, I'm in the classroom. I see it every day. But this grading scale gives students permission to be apathetic, and that is not what we want. Teaching our students that they don't have to do anything to earn half credit will not help motivate students to be successful. In my research of this grading scale, I've read about students being less prepared for tests because they don't see the value in doing the work prior, like worksheets or group work, etc. Never mind the point that this grading scale puts a Band-Aid on the mental health issues instead of handling them head on. Growth happens in the struggle. I know that's not a popular thing to say. No one enjoys struggling, but my proudest moments as a teacher is when a student who is struggling to understand a concept and they finally get it. That cliched light bulb moment. Encouraging apathy will make those light bulb moments dim out forever. Teachers do not enjoy watching their students fail. We work very hard to give them the tools they need to work towards success. We offer support and strategies to give them a hand up as they figure things out. The idea of this handout hurts my heart because I strongly believe this will be a detriment to our students in the long run. I understand that those of you who are in favor of this have the best of intentions. I would like to encourage all of us to take a step back. Making this policy when school starts in less than a month gives no opportunity for teachers, the ones in the trenches, the ones who have to implement this, no time to learn how to apply it with fidelity. I encourage you to research how other districts have applied this and how it is working for them. My research suggests that it's not going so well.
Thank you, Ms. Kearney. Thank you, Ms. Kearney. Dr. McNeil, I see your light.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm from the old school. 0 is a 0. I am not in accord with this policy. I'm so sorry for those who choose to follow it, but I cannot go along with this. Didn't have a struggle with one child. I had a struggle with one of them. One of them I didn't. And so the one who I struggle with is a teacher, and he would certainly not want to go along with this policy as well. Thank you.
Yep, and I had an opportunity to talk to some young people and even talk to my daughter. If we just, as educators, encourage students, it can make a whole lot of difference. We have kids, I know when my daughter had the chance to work at Gainesville High School, there are kids who had never made an A. They now have A's and B's because of just a little encouragement and somebody saying, no, you can do this. And that's all it takes, you know, because I had 2 summa cum laudes and I had a thank you laude. But they're all graduates of college. And so it can happen, and I too, you know, because we are at a time, we're behind. As Ms. Kearney said, I thank you for your comments, with COVID. And we got to push our children. You know, when we look at across the country, and we look outside of the country, there, you know, even in China, kids are going to school year-round. It makes a difference. But just encouraging them, starting when they, especially when they enter 9th grade, because when they come to high school, we know which kids are struggling. But it's what we're going to do to help and to implement, to push them and encourage them along. So thank you for your comments as well. Ms. Surton.
So I'd like to make an amendment to the motion that was made modify the motion to not change the grading schedule in the primary and the secondary books that we have here before, student progression manual, that we stick with the former grading schedule. I think all the other changes I'm okay with, but the grading schedule in both manuals. So I'd move that we amend the motion to.
Who made the motion from the beginning?
She did. We can just vote on the amendment. I'm sorry.
My notes reflect that Ms. Abbott made the original motion, so we need to see if we have a second.
I thought I did.
Okay, I apologize.
Dr. Rockwell made the motion.
Ms. Peck, do you know for sure?
Yeah.
Right.
I
think so.
I accept Ms. Surton's amendment.
Okay.
Second to the amendment, so.
All right, and before we have a phone call, thank you. Calling, state your name, 3 minutes with the board.
Caller, you live with the board. Please state your name. You have 3 minutes.
What'd you say?
Yes, I'd like to be known as Jane Doe. For personal reasons, I'd like to remain anonymous.
Madam Chair,
Wants to remain anonymous.
do you want to remain anonymous?
Hello?
That's fine.
Go ahead with your comment.
Okay. I'm an experienced Alachua County teacher who has recently learned about the superintendent's plan to change the district's grading system without adequate teacher or parent input. What does this progression plan include besides the no 0 or minimum 50 grading? Is it also no late work, unlimited test retakes? Shouldn't teachers and parents be given a chance to give input? Minimum 50 grading might seem like a quick fix for some inequities in grading policies and certainly would be free and relatively easy to implement. Is this what the superintendent wants, something cheap and easy to say we are doing something? I understand that a few narrow studies suggest that it helps, but other studies show that grades and motivation decline under the minimum 50 policy. One study I found reports that it does not benefit top kids or the most struggling learners and only benefits the average student who gets a few devastating zeros. For example, this student would have had a B except for 1 0 that pulls them down to a C. I agree that current grading is not perfect. I also know that the vast majority of teachers have solutions for this already. I have read the arguments that the grading scale is not evenly distributed, 60-point spread for F and then 10 points for each of the other grades. Why should it be even? We have a minimum standard in place, and this policy will lower that standard. I have read the argument about bad feelings from zeros and kids shutting down. We have systems in place for that. Teachers and counselors deal with these compassionately on a case-by-case basis. I have students who get very upset over a C or a B. What about their feelings? Why are we avoiding all bad feelings instead of teaching resilience? My primary argument against the no-zero grading policy is that it forces a one-size-fits-all solution that is not proven. We all know that students are not one-size-fits-all. Motivating each student is a delicate dance. One study shows that no zeros leads to greater absenteeism among lower achieving students. I have a friend who has taught the last few years under this minimum 50 system. She reports that a student can earn a high B in the first quarter of school and then completely stop coming to school. And mathematically, they cannot fail. She has watched students become more apathetic about studying because they know they can just retake a test. What about advanced level classes? Students are given weighted grades for higher rigor. Many higher achieving students will put a surprising amount of energy into finding the minimum amount of work they can get away with for that grade. Taking the path of least resistance is strong in students of all levels. Minimum 50 grades.
Thank you. Dr. H.
Caller, you're live with the board. You have 3 minutes. Please state your name. Caller, you're live with the board. You have 3 minutes.
Hello.
State your name.
Oh, it sounded.
Hello?
Yeah.
Please state your name. You have 3 minutes with the board.
Okay, my name is Tina Days, and I disagree with the changing of the grading policy. My sister, who's a teacher, used to be a teacher. She's a dean now at Putnam School District. They changed to the policy of this 50%, and she said while she was in the classroom, all the kids needed to do is put their name on the paperwork, classwork, test, and they got a 50%. I don't think that this is right. How is this preparing our students to go to college? All you have to do is put your name on the paper, and you get 50%. This is not preparing them to go to college. They're not going to do well in college for this. And I agree with the other, the teacher. We're dumbing down our students. This not going to motivate them to doing the work. Yeah, it is hard, and some kids do struggle. But how is them giving a 50% that all they have to do is put their name on the paper? That's not going to motivate them to study to do well. In real life, when you go to college or any job, you have to put in the time and the effort to get good grades. I think this is a horrible, horrible idea. I understand some students this might benefit them, but on the whole, this will not benefit everybody. We are dumbing down our students. We need to motivate them. We need to encourage them to do better. We need to help them to study, but not just give a student just a 50% just by writing their name on the paper. No, we need to keep the grading policy as it is. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
That's all the callers.
All right. Dr. Atria, I don't want people to think we just didn't have any input. Go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, we did have input from teachers and students and administrators.
Okay, thank you. All right.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
if I may, just for the record, we should use a grade point system. An F should be a 0.0, a D minus should be a 0.5, a D should be a 1.0, a D plus should be a 1.5, a C should be a 2.0, a C plus should be a 2.5, a B should be a 3.0, a B plus should be a 3.5, and an A should be a 4.0. Then by the time our students got to high school, they would understand the GPA system that's required for them to be admitted into an institution of higher learning. And so that's what I want to say for the record. Thank you.
All right. Is there any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye.
Just, again, for the sake of our minutes, I apologize for interrupting. We've had a friendly amendment.
Yeah.
Do we have a second to the motion as amended?
Yes.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, good. You got it all, Ms. Peck, right? Yes. All right, all in favor? Aye. Motion carries unanimously. All right. All right, moving on to number 8, amendments to policy 2522. Challenges to adoptions or use of instructional, library, or reading list materials. This is our second reading.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. This is the last of our policy amendments. The board had a workshop on this on May 8th of 2024, first reading on May 21st, public hearing on June 18th. Amendments are shown on the attached document. A statement of purpose and effect at the beginning of the attached document shows a summary of those amendments. In addition, based on input received at the first reading and during the public hearing, additional amendments were made. They are set forth in the statement of purpose and effect and shown in yellow on the attached policy. The superintendent recommends the board approve the amendments to policy 2522, challenges to adoption and use of instructional, library, or reading list materials as presented.
Is there a second? It's been moved and seconded by Ms. Surton. Is there any discussion? Dr. Rockwell?
I brought this up at the public hearing on page 1. In the first set of bullet points, D, it says representative means a lawyer who represents the objector petitioner or a non-lawyer who acts for and on behalf of the objector petitioner. I have concerns with the non-lawyer section. The state recently passed legislation to limit county residents who do not have a child with access to the district materials being challenged to 1 challenge per month. I am concerned that a citizen who wishes to challenge books and does not have a child could find somebody who's unwilling to speak at a board meeting and hearing but is willing to submit the paperwork, have them submit it, and then act as their representative to kind of find a loophole around that legislation. And I think we can close that loophole by eliminating that from or forward in bullet point D. And so I would like to offer a friendly amendment to the motion that we approve this policy as presented with the edit of removing the second half of that sentence.
Second. All right. Is there any other discussion? Any citizen input? Yes, come on. State your name. You have 3 minutes. She gave a friendly amendment already to her.
I think whoever made the motion might need to accept it. Is that
I thought she did.
Or we can just vote on the amendment and
Right,
then vote
right.
on the motion as amended.
That'd be simpler to do that. Go ahead, Ms. Hines. Just state your name.
My name again is Tawana Hines. I just wanted to kind of make a few comments to things that I heard this evening. Can y'all hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
The first is I want to kind of caution you all on having a matrix, and I will say that I've been a BRT for 8 years, and I was a PACE administrator for 11 years, so I come with the heart of passion with students that...
Ms. Hines, wait, we're not on that item anymore. You can come back as citizen.
Oh, I thought
input
you
with
said
that.
citizen input. So
Well, no, only for this item. We're on the item, but I'll bring you back. Don't worry. We have a second citizen input. Thank you, though. All right. All in favor? Because she made an amendment. Aye. Okay, and then we also have
We'll vote on
a
the
motion, and we'll vote on it. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. All right. Motion carry. All right, moving on to action item number 9, Title I. Title I, Part A, and Title I, Part D, Consolidated Project Allocations for 24-25. Ms. Steptoe.
Good evening, Chair, Board, and members of the district. I bring before you tonight 2 of our entitlement grants, Title I Part A and Title I Part D. They were on the consent agenda. I am here to answer any questions that you may have about those applications.
All right, Ms. Surton.
Thank you. Ms. Steptoe, I tried to reach you by phone a couple times, but I'm not sure if you got my message or not, but I did have a couple questions. I talked with Ms. Roll a little bit to ask about use of Title I at the secondary level.
Yes, ma'am.
Which schools, are we using Title I at any of the secondary schools?
Currently, the only traditional secondary school that we have receiving Title I services is Hawthorne Middle High School. We do serve Aquin Jones Center and Sidney Lanier Center, along with SciTech Charter School and North Central Florida Public Charter School.
High Springs is High Springs?
High Springs is a split-funded program. We are currently only funding activities for kindergarten through 5th grade. When you calculated in their percentage of children from low-income families, K-8, they did not meet the eligibility criteria for our district. But by disaggregating out kindergarten through 5th grade, the elementary grades did meet the eligibility criteria. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, okay, so that, and let me see. And could you tell me approximately, because I wasn't able to to gather it here, how much of Title I will be used to support V-Pre-K?
$300,000 will be used to support early childhood. $293,000 of that directly to the additional services for 4 Title I VPK blended classrooms. The remainder funds will be there for transition services for early childhood students into kindergarten, as well as supports for the HIPPY program.
Thank you. Those are the questions that I had.
All right. Any other questions? First, I need a motion. Sorry, I missed.
Move with staff recommendation.
All right. It's been moved and seconded by Dr. Rockwell. All right. Is there any other questions, Dr. Rockwell?
Oh, sorry, no.
Are you on? Oh, okay. All right. Any citizen input? Any phone calls? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. All right, we're back to citizen input. Ms. Hines, if you want to come on. And just state your name. You have 3 minutes with the board.
My name is Tawana Hines, and as I said earlier, I have been a BRT for 8 years, and I come from PACE with administrative experience for 11. So to say that I truly have a heart for those that need some extra supports. With that in mind, I do caution you all on using a matrix. I do think that's going to create or undo some of the things that we've been working toward as a district to reduce our disproportionate rates. The other part I wanted to say is that I think it was maybe about 4 years ago, we received a discipline guide. That guide kind of gives us the framework, as you all referenced, from another county, I think you said in Orlando. That's a really, really good tool that, although I know we don't use it as a district, I continue to use mine because it does give you a framework. And I also wanted to clarify the referral process. I heard someone say when a teacher writes a referral, there's nothing done. I wanted to clarify that. So when a teacher writes a referral, we get it and we still address it. Where we have some discretion at is to whether we keep it as a referral or we turn it to an offense. So it doesn't say we didn't do anything. It just says that we're giving this kid a break instead of it following them on the transcript, which is what happens when you turn it to an offense. We're going to give them a little bit of room, or we may think that that referral may have been more teacher managed, and that should have been something that should have stayed at that level. But it's still in the system for documentation to show proof, so I did want to clarify that. The other thing, I think, when we're talking about discipline, I'm still hearing the board, the conversation, I'll say, refer to more punitive consequences. We have a whole thing out there now that I thought this district was more on a restorative discipline. So for me, I'm in that field. And so to hear that we're having this big discussion here with no discussion concerning the restorative discipline, I can see why we're still kind of like not really getting stable and having consistency, because the message to me is different. And that's it. That's all I have to say. Thank you for your time.
Any other citizen input? Come up and state your name. You have 3 minutes.
Hi, Dr. Vermont again. I did want to just kind of piggyback on the discipline first. We aren't really addressing mental health. I know that the district has provided a lot of support for mental health in the schools, but a lot of your discipline, severe discipline issues have to do with A, mental health, and B, also lack of academic and reading ability. As a school psychologist, I see that in our district, that the kids are struggling to read are the ones that have the most discipline problems, and then they get the most punitive measures, and it's just a cycle. And until, again, you address reading, it's going to continue to be an issue regardless of what you do. I also think that there's also some societal aspects like meth and children who have been born with meth. I call it Swiss cheese brain, where it's very difficult for them to learn. But I wanted to come back up here because looking around the room and I see so many great artworks from Newberry Elementary, and I've been really disappointed that I haven't heard much from most of our board members about saving Newberry Elementary. I know that in the last meeting I heard someone say, well, it's not political. It is political. I would like our county and our board members to stand up for Newberry Elementary and say that it's not acceptable what's happening. And I also want a plan for if the state decides that they want to take over Newberry Elementary, what is the plan going to be for those students and for the parents and for the kids at Archer? It seems like, and again, this is me probably saying rumors of things that I've heard, that people have made agreements on this board and maybe even the superintendent with Newberry commissioners regarding just letting Newberry just turn into a conversion charter school. I love charter schools, by the way. I'm on the board of Expressions Learning Arts Academy. It was a charter school that was created by someone to fill a need, and they created it themselves. They built it themselves. They didn't take over anybody's schools. So I love charter schools. I think there's a place for them in this district, but I'm really disappointed that no one has stood up for Newberry Elementary and Archer. Actually, the people at Archer probably, nobody's really cared about them much. And shout out to Brandy. She comes to every meeting over in Newberry. And she's probably one of the few just standing up at every single meeting saying, you guys need to do something about it. And the citizens want to help. That's it. Thank you.
Moving on to board member superintendent requests. Ms. Surton?
Ms. Pick, the last motion on the Title I grant, I didn't vote. So I'm against that. Not that I'm against Title I, I'm not in agreement with us using those funds for early learning, and I've expressed that. So please change that 4-1, yeah, I'm sorry. I don't have any requests. I'll get those to the superintendent. Thank you.
Dr. Rockwell?
Thank you, Mrs. McGraw. I have one request, but before I do that, I just wanted to make a couple of comments. I heard one of our commenters discuss restorative practices and possibly you were thinking about positive behavior supports as well that we do district-wide. And I fully support those, but what was up for discussion tonight was the Student Code of Conduct, which deals with our progressive discipline. And when I mentioned that we need to be looking at our tiers of support in our MTSS, our PBIS systems are school-wide and class-wide. They're supposed to be district-wide. That is our tier 1. Not all of our schools do restorative practices. At those that do, it would probably be more like a tier 2 intervention. I'm not totally sure because it's not district-wide, but I don't want anyone listening to think that we're only focused on punishment. It's just that what was before the board to vote on today was the Student Code of Conduct, which specifically deals with what happens when our preventative measures fail. And one of those consequences is to have a conversation with the student. One of those consequences can be a conversation with the administrator or the dean or BRT. But that is just what was before the board tonight. So I wanted to clarify that a little bit. I also wanted to respond to the situation with Newberry Elementary. My understanding, and Mr. Andrew can correct me if I'm wrong, but the school district and this board are operating from the understanding that based on the statute and corresponding administrative rules, all 3 conversion votes failed. Unless and until a charter application is actually submitted, there is nothing we can do at this point. We have said that the votes failed. If there comes a time when an application is actually submitted, then we can challenge the validity of that application even existing, and determining whether or not to challenge that would be a board vote, I believe, because it would probably involve hiring legal counsel and spending money and would come before this board. And I cannot speak for any of my colleagues, but I can speak for myself that if that happens and it comes before the board, I will support challenging it legally. As far as I am concerned, that conversion vote failed. The corresponding turnover we've had in faculty and staff at Newberry Elementary shows that this whole process has been extremely detrimental to that community. And the people spearheading it, some of their concerns for Newberry Elementary were valid, and we could have sat down and had discussions before this charter conversion process started. I used to speak to Mayor Marlowe all the time. He could have, how many times did I ask about his air conditioning, Mr. Andrew? Multiple. So we could have sat down and had discussions about how to prioritize making some improvements, but that's not what happened. What happened was a campaign that has torn apart a very tight-knit community, created a harsh division in that community, and it's ultimately harmed the children of that community, and that breaks my heart. Not to mention the fact that as an elected official of this county and of this school district, one of my jobs is to protect our taxpayers' investments. And converting a school that is not failing to a charter, in my opinion, is not good stewardship of our taxpayer dollars. So I have opposed this verbally, vocally, wholeheartedly from the beginning. So I just wanted to say that. And my final request is just I know that we are in the process of looking at potential consulting firms to help us with a new rezoning plan, and I'm hoping that at our next meeting or workshop, we can get an update on how that's going and when we might see that come before the board to choose a consulting firm. Thank you.
Dr. McNeely?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Attorney Susan Siegel, if this is your last night, we want to thank you for all of your diligence, your time, your energy. I have attended a couple of parties this summer for people who were leaving. So if I missed yours, I'm so sorry. Did you have one?
Ma'am, I'm not leaving actually until the 31st of July.
Yeah.
This is my last board meeting.
Right.
I'm going to be here.
So we
that-
have time, in other words,
We
we
have
have time to
time.
get it together.
Time to pause.
All right. No problem, but I wanted to say that publicly. We appreciate you, and I'm going to see to the superintendent and deputy superintendent and Mrs. Peck that we have it quickly, because I will not be here on Tuesday. So we have to have it either this week and Monday, because I want to be a part of it. Thank you very much, Madam Chair.
Yeah, and yeah, of course, Ms. Siegel, when I met you, oh God, maybe a couple of years ago now, huh? I appreciate everything that you come back and help this district, because it benefits our children. So thank you so much, and we do have time, but thank you. I've built a relationship with you. We are gonna miss you, but you'll still be around. You're not leaving Gainesville, so we'll be able to still have some contact with you as well. And also, I want to say go ahead.
This has nothing to do with Ms. Siegel, but I see Mr. Nix in the audience. Are you going too? We thank you as well. I missed your celebration, but I'll get with you.
He hadn't
Thank
had no
you.
celebration yet. He has not had a celebration. But also, I want to, as chair of the board, I do, and for citizens who are listening, I want to encourage you that if you have any questions about things that are happening with Alachua County Public Schools, because I can say without a shadow of a doubt, things are changing in Alachua County Public Schools, feel free to reach out. My phone number is 352-246-8071. A lot of times we get on Facebook and we do Facebook University, but I want to make sure we're putting the right information out. When I came in as chair, one of the things I said is that when there's misinformation, we're going to begin to correct that information when it's said. But if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. Mr. Andrew.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And just to echo what everyone has said, but just a heartfelt thank you from, I know I'm speaking on behalf of Alachua County Public Schools, our staff, administrators, teachers. There's been some, instructional, non-instructional, whatever the position, whatever the classification, the wisdom that you've brought and the support that you've brought, and your willingness to be right there beside everyone, supporting everyone, is just, it's hard to put into words. So I thank you privately and gave you your roses there, and we'll continue. And just on a personal thank you for the impact that you've made on me and on my career, and the wisdom that you've shared. You stepped in at a time, we've said it, you and Mr. Burkett, at a time where our students needed you, and you were there once again for our students and our community. So thank you so much.
I can't believe I forgot to thank you, Ms. Siegel. You stepped in at a time when we desperately needed you, and you came in with a heart for protecting and all of our students, staff members, and families. You came in with a passion for making sure that no matter how difficult surrounding circumstances made things, that our district was going to be one where every student, every staff member, and every family and type of family could feel valued and safe and included. And I just want to tell you how greatly I appreciate you for doing that. And we have policies and procedural documents in place now that I feel really proud of and really good about. And that is in great part thanks to you and your work. And I just appreciate you so, so very much.
I would like to thank you all and tell you it's been a pleasure and an honor working with you all. I am very fond of most everybody I've met here, And I've had some good experiences and some interesting ones, including that fellow right there. But thank you so
All right,
much, and
let's see.
I will be around, so I'm not going away forever or for long.
All right, thank you so much. If all hearts and minds are clear, this meeting is adjourned at 8:49.